afternoon, SMITE fans, and welcome into the SPL. It is the final day of the week, which means you know it's going to be jam-packed with some excellent sets. We're going to be starting off with a particularly good one, SSG versus PK. We'll break that down a bit more in just a moment. I'm joined here on the desk by Agro. Agro, we just finished the SEC together. Now here we're on the desk. We're just kind of hanging out today, it feels.
Listen, man, we're chilling. You know, we can talk a little bit of SMITE, a little bit of football in between games. It sounds like a pretty good Sunday to me. I think we're going to be in for a really, really good day of the SPL, and hopefully a big fantasy win for me over one Cynoshare.
Yeah, we got to do something to take down Hindu, man. He's having too good of a start to this whole thing. That ego's getting out of control. Let's go ahead and start to take a look at what you all can expect to be coming up here today. We will start with the schedule. As I said, Spacestation and PK will be our very first set. Sanguine and Renegades will be coming up later. And this this Spacestation PK set, it really is huge because PK are on a tear right now, as our Space Station. PK has improved up, as you'll see here with these standings, to tying for that third place spot alongside Sanguine. They're both at 8 and 6, with Radiance in a free fall right now, dropping to 8 and 7. So if PK could somehow get this set win and create some space between them and Sanguine, I mean, that'd be absolutely huge for them.
It would be massive, but I think it's going to be tough for them because Space Station pretty much just got through speed running E-United, a team that was undefeated previously up until that point since their roster changes. So we know this SSG team is in a really, really good spot. I think they've got a really good understanding of how they want to play the meta, and they're just a tough team to pick and ban against, which makes them very, very difficult to beat on any given day.
Yeah, and who is the crux of that difficulty in picks and bans? I mean, it has to be Dardes, right? I mean, this guy demands that you ban Afro and Hera and all these other mid laners against him, and it leaves you in this spot where it feels like you're leaving too much good stuff up for the rest of this insane team.
It's really, really difficult, and you're right that it does start with Dardes. This guy ends up putting so much pressure on you in picks and bans, and there's a reason why Nika, has gotten so many AMA games as of late. It's because you have to ban Afro against Dardes. You have to worry about the Hera. It's just too difficult based on their playstyle.
It is, and Dardes commands that respect well earned. I mean, we saw that Aphrodite game come through. I believe it was Radiant that led it through against them in one of their first sets back after their extended absence, and Dardes proved right away that it was not an overreaction. That's not a mistake. You must continue to ban it from him, or he will just dictate how the game goes. Perfectly synced up with this Afro clip. Wish we could have planned it, but yes, man, this has been... they're such a tough team to deal with. The Pigs and Mans is the crux of it, but their mid 3v3 is insane too. You don't want to fight Raffer, Dardes, and Cheerio, or Dardes, Cheerio, and Nika. There's no good fight for you anywhere on the map against this team, which means that for Paul, on the other side of PK, he absolutely has his work cut out for him.
He does, but he brings a lot of the same pressure to picks and bans that Dardes does, right? I mean, you have to worry about the Hebo and the Hell when it comes to Paul. The Persephone as well is a pick that I think we're going to see get a little bit more focus in this set. And so which mid laner is going to be able to get a priority pick and then be able to execute on it is going to be a big deal. But oftentimes when it comes down to situations like this where there's key priority picks for both mid laners or for any role, it's really which of these players can make do with something a little bit lower on their tier list, right? Which of these mid laners can take something a little bit lower on the priority list, you know, a Merlin or a Raijin or something like that, and then make a really big impact, because once that happens, you blow picks and bans wide open. It's impossible to deal with you then. If they put you on a god that they can say, okay, we've succeeded in picks and bans, we've taken him off something that we think he really wants, and then you still go in and you still make big plays on it, it becomes impossible to play against you at that point. And that's what Dardes and Paul have really done. Always also crossing my fingers and hoping that we get to see Paul pull out the set mid, because I think that's such an interesting and unique play style we get to see from him.
Man, these are some of our very best that are about to do battle here, right? I mean, obviously Shinto and Twig with like a word in on that conversation, but these two obviously are amongst the best we have. And I think it might be fair to say at this point that Dardes is straight up the best that we have in the middle lane. And it's just so scary trying to figure out how to deal with either one of these guys, especially Paul, who brings his own unique flavor with things like the Habwa and, as you mentioned, the set and all these aggressive picks. Paul is the one that's got to do a lot here for PK, and he's also the one that we sat down with for the pregame interview.
That's right. I'm here with Paul from the Knights. And Paul, I want to know, you're coming through, rising up, now tied for third place. Just how's the team feeling right now? That's a remarkable accomplishment.
Yeah, we're feeling really good after our win spree, I guess. What is it, like 3 or 4 games now in a row?
Yeah.
So we're finally against one of the best teams. I think they're first seed now, Spacestation. They're like 11-3 or something. So we're gonna try to give them a really good set and hopefully win and keep the win spree going.
Yeah, I guess that kind of double dips. SSG, they've only been beaten by Ghost so far this phase. What do you expect? Is your goal really just to come in and make sure the games are good, or are you really coming in for this as like the next team to be able to beat them?
Yeah, yeah, that'd be preferable to beat them, but yeah, yeah, we want to be able to beat them like consistently, but they're pretty good, so probably gonna lose. But other than that, yeah.
Nah, I'm sure you guys have it, right? Yeah, I mean, with a team on a hot streak like this, you're definitely going to be able to bring at least the heat with you. And that's actually where I think mid is going to come into the conversation. You and Dardez are going to be going up against each other, and you both have, I want to say, not only immense god pools, but eclectic god pools. Like, you are willing to pull out pretty much anything and everything. You yourself get target banned in almost every game, it feels like. So what can we expect? Are you going to be pulling out anything maybe a little special for this set, or is it going to be more, the Hebos, hell if you can get it, and just kind of the staple that we've come to expect from the Knights?
I'm just gonna play the same stuff pretty much. Maybe throw in a little curveball, but I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see.
Is there anything specific about Dardez that you're gonna be like trying to tackle, knowing that he's gonna also be bringing pretty much anything into the lane? Like, how do you deal with a matchup like that?
I know he's like an Afro spammer. Like everyone's like, dude, you gotta ban his Afro, man. I don't know, man. It's such a weird conundrum, man. Like how people, it's like, dude, Afros, you can't let him have Afro, but like nobody else plays Afro. It's so strange how Smite works.
Well, hey, yeah, it's so interesting because of the fact that, I mean, you yourself are like that. Who else is getting hell banned against them? Literally nobody else in the league.
It's so weird,
so it's
man.
fun to watch. I think this mid matchup is going to be probably the most interesting part, at least in my eyes, of this game, although there's a lot of little flavor coming in. It's exciting to watch you guys go up against SSG, so thanks for your time and good luck in your games.
Thank you.
We don't get to hear from Paul that often, but it's always great when we do. Hey, maybe we'll just go in and lose, and it's weird that pocket picks get banned against people. I love hearing from this guy, and you know that he is focused on trying to get this win. They want to be able to keep this win streak going that they've had up until this set, but they might be hitting a brick wall here, Aggro. Only Ghost seem to be able to consistently beat this SSG team.
I love how Paul's like, yeah, it's so weird how we would, ban a specific god against a specific player, as if Paul has him getting like double and triple banned every single game for over a year at the SPL level. I think I'd be surprised if PK don't ban the Afro, but maybe based on Paul's response to Gore's question, they're considering it.
They better have something good planned for it. Let's get into those picks and bans for game number 1. Paul gave us one other little hint that they might have something spicy coming out here this game. We'll see if they do indeed try to go for something a little bit different. Twig has been throwing the Anubis into the mix to try and mix things up. It hasn't exactly been doing great, but they're mixing things up over there too. So maybe PK considering trying to do something similar for themselves. Now, this very first ban with PK in the first ban spot is on this Erlong Shen, a target here towards Cheerio. We are expecting PK to spend quite a few bans on Dardez, so if that's the plan, they've only got 2 left to do so.
And they have to worry about making sure that other gods don't go through as well. I mean, Ama is going to be a concern in this set, of course, for Nika, who's still touting an insane win rate on that pick. I'd expect PK to really be willing to first pick something like Amaterasu for Scary, make sure they can take that away, or make sure that they get Yamoja. I feel like if you're SSG, there's probably a world where you can force PK to choose between getting Yamoja or Amaterasu, and then you get the other, plus your pick of Premier Hunter right now. I think that might be what SSG should be going for.
I'm thinking so too. And SSG, unlike PK, seem happy with spending some target bans here. The Persephone, not so much a target ban as a perma ban, but the Habois, a bit more of a Paul special. So they're heading right towards that mid lane God pool right away. And there it is for PK. Despite what Paul might have been alluding to, they will be banning the Afro and the Hera and trying to limit some of what can be done by Dardes in mid. But as you were saying, this means that Yemoja and Ama are both open. And if you're SSG, you don't really feel good about banning it. So now you're saying Yemoja, Ama, and Cupid are the 3 priorities, and you have set yourself up to get 2.
Yeah, I like this by SSG. You're making sure that you are either PK is going to take Cupid, which would be psychotic, and then you get Yemoja Ama, and you're feeling great about your position. Or PK takes 1, almost certainly Yemoja. That's what ends up happening. And now SSG get to go Amaterasu Cupid and get the Premier Hunter. We almost certainly know what Zap's going to play because he's picked Heimdall like every single game for 2 weeks straight, it feels like. So you know pretty much what you're going to get out of that matchup. And you came away with 2 of the top picks. I think SSG has done their draft very well so far.
This has been clean from them, and it allows them to give Neoma the Yemoja, or from SSG rather, it's been clean, but this does mean PK gets to give Neoma the Yemoja, excuse me there, and he can control the pace of the game on this type of pick, especially at the beginning of the game in the duo lane. He can start to look for some pressure, he can start to rotate out. Neil does not hang around the duo lane that often. He trusts Zapman on the Heimdall to be safe. Likely that's the pick he'll end up with, but even if he ends up on something else, he trusts Zapman in the matchup. So that means that he can rotate around and try and help Paul, try and see if they can slow down Dardes, as we expected. No big surprise that it was the Cupid to go alongside this Amaterasu. So we think that the Heimdall is coming for Zap, but where else would you expect them to go? It looks like it will be towards mid. Go ahead and get the hell in a world where there is no Aphrodite on the other side.
Yeah, for all the strengths that Paul has, I do feel like this is one of the weaknesses where you feel like you are priced in to getting his god top 3 pretty much no matter what, especially when you know that SSG is going to be banning mages again on the back end. Persephone Hebo already taken off the table. If SSG get another round of bans to pick apart that god pool, we're pretty far down in what Paul wants to pick. So Hell and Heimdall right off the bat makes a bunch of sense. I do think that Hell has an okay matchup against what SSG already has. Dazzling Offensive is a very telegraphed CC, so you can easily cleanse your teammates. The problem is that you're going to eat that damage from Dazzling Offensive pretty much no matter what, even if you end up cleansing it. As Dardes goes back to this Chang'e, I'd assume this is for Dardes in the mid lane, and I think that this is because of the innate anti-heal that Chang'e brings in that mid lane. Her 3, remember, does have 40% anti-heal. You add in, or maybe it's 50%, you add in Divine Ruin. We're talking nearly 100% anti-heal from one ability coming out of your mid laner. Does require you to be melee range, though, which is not always a good spot to be in against Hell.
And I feel as though Chang'e could take a little while before her clear speed's feeling super comfortable, and Hell is going to be rocking and rolling, dude. She's going to be ready to push the waves from the beginning. So I don't know. This is an interesting matchup. I wonder if the anti-heal is that big a deal. Do they want to match the sustain that the Hell's going to provide, and the Yemoja for that matter? They got a ton of sustain on the side of PK already. But I almost wonder if maybe this is a little, maybe a little bit too soon or a little too forced. I have not been super impressed with this Chang'e when we have seen it. I believe it's at a 67% win rate, so it is doing okay, but a lot of good mid laners still available in the Chang'e coming out.
Yeah, 2 out of 3 games she's won, but I agree. Look, everyone should know I'm a notorious Chang'e mid hater. I've hated it forever. It was really meta on Xbox back in the day whenever I was competing, and I hated playing against it. I just don't think it's that good. All it is really obnoxious to deal with as the enemy mid laner. But it's not even that annoying for someone like Hell. We were playing things like Isis and Poseidon back in the day that made it really hard to get your guaranteed damage off against someone like Chang'e. Hell doesn't care. She's got tons of cooldowns. I think that I agree. Chang'e is just not really priority in my mind. If you're SSG, I mean, you still get Robin for Cherio, one of his premier picks. I'd anticipate a Kuzenbo coming from Raffer, so that's going to make you feel pretty good. Maybe Xing Chen, but I think Kuzenbo looks like the best available for him. Even though I agree that they reached, I think SSG is likely going to end up with a pretty solid 5.
They are, and PK has some great options left for their solo and their jungle as well. If they want to grab the Wukong, that's still out there. We know that's considered one of the next best up against the Ama. Cthulhu's still too, though his value has dropped a little bit here lately. Maybe not considered that second best in terms of the solo laner. But Osiris comes in, and I think this obviously makes some inherent sense, right? Lord of the Afterlife has that 100% anti-heal on if he's able to land on you with it. But Osiris has gotten bullied when he shows up at the solo lane nowadays. I don't know if he's quite up to snuff at some of these other solo laners that are out there.
Agreed, but he did get a buff a little bit recently to at least help with some of that judgment tether, survivability, and team utility that you can bring. I kind of like it up against the Chang'e, not just because the anti-heal, the obvious part of the ultimate, but she has a tough time getting away from constant slows. I mean, she has movement speed in the kit, of course. Whenever she uses an ability, that's the passive, is that she gets some inherent movement speed when casting. But if you can land a consistent 1 as this Osiris, then you're going to be able to catch her fairly easily. Clearly, SSG very worried about their anti-heal application, so they go with the Bacchus. Now you have over 100% anti-heal as soon as you buy 1 anti-heal item, whether it be Divine Ruin or Brawler's Beatstick or Toxic Blade or Contagion, anything like that. Really trying to shut down Paul on this hell. And I kind of agree with them because there's nothing else that scary here for PK. I mean, Camazot's sure, but you can't really do anything against Camazot's anyways. Kama's either going to have a great game or a not great game, and a lot of it is really on the Camazot's player in my mind. You're not going to be able to disrupt him that much. Making sure this Hell and Yamoja healing doesn't snowball out of control seems like the only real concern for SSG in their draft, and I agree with their assessment. I think that's the only thing that scares me about PK's draft.
An interesting decision, though. I like that PK don't go with something big and telegraphed, though, because that second ability from Chang'e so strong into those types of things, not too dissimilarly from how Hell can get away from telegraph CC2. So they go with, as you said, the sustained damage from Camazotz and Osiris. Will that be enough to overwhelm SSG, or will Game 1 go to the favorites? Let's find out with Gore and Hindu.
Well, that's right, Finch. It's myself, Gormizer, alongside Hindu Man to take you through this one. And Hindu, almost immediately I want to talk about the fact that Nika has a 100% win rate on Amaterasu, keeps getting Amaterasu, and that just seems to be a problem in and of itself. But I feel like we've had that conversation enough times that we could maybe talk a little bit about what the desk was talking about there. The healing versus the anti-heal. Bacchus' first game that's coming through. With Sobek banned, he's the only other Guardian that has that easy application anti-heal. Do you like Raffer bringing it out?
I'm interested to see how this works out, honestly, because Bacchus in the early game is where he's really going to struggle, especially when you look at the composition that both teams have drafted in this duo lane. Spacestation Gaming are on the defense. Cupid Bacchus clear is no way going to be as effective and punishing as what you're going to see out of a Yamoja and a Heimdall in the same laning phase. So expect them to be on the back foot a little bit in this early game and maybe need a bit of support from their jungler, which is a Raven after all, so it's not going to be too doom and gloom on some early ganks.
Someone who loves to play Bacchus, just watch his mana bar. I think Raffer's going to be hurting there, I think, more than anywhere else. And the same thing maybe could be said for Neil, but like you said, the pressure already starting to mount up for the Knights here, and something they need early on. This is a matchup no one except for Ghost Gaming has been able to figure out in terms of taking down SSG. A couple of games here and there, but in terms of sets, they haven't been able to topple them. And so it comes down to these crazy, I want to say little just micro minutia details that are going to happen throughout here, and a lot of it in the duo lane, but I think a little bit of it in mid, and especially over here in the solo lane. Osiris has kind of been getting beat up a lot just in general this year, but to be up against Nika's Amaterasu, that just seems scary.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Osiris isn't too bad in the lane matchup against Amaterasu, but the problem is that Anna got quite a few buffs over time, and her effectiveness in the early game did go up. So it makes it a little bit trickier for Osiris to just win the lane outright. And here's that gank I was expecting, with knowing what the pressure situation was like. Cherry coming in.
It's going to be a good knockup from Bacchus. They have the damage and the lockdown. All they need on the Zap. He's going to get taken down here. If you're losing pressure, all you need is a dash of Cheerio to make sure things go your way. And that's a good start. Like you were saying, Raffer going to start losing pressure. That's going to equalize at least a little bit.
Definitely, at least for the time being, but look at what Cuvo's doing in response, and this is what you kind of need your jungler to do if you know you're not going to be able to look for those early ganks necessarily, is go in the jungle and try and strip some farm away. It's not a whole lot getting those back harpies, but at least it's something. I think the biggest thing about this matchup, I think unless someone runs away with it in the first 10 minutes and gets a huge lead, we are in for a sustain-off match. Like, obviously, there's a lot of healers on both sides, a lot of anti-heal too. But as this game plays out, it's going to come down to team fights and really anti-heal versus who can resustain. Both teams have ridiculous sustain in this match.
Well, Nika right now at about 1/3 HP, but Cuvo's going to be right behind him. A good dash to make sure he gets under that tower, and it doesn't seem like the Knights are willing to dive under this one. Cherio's in the neighborhood, but it looks like that's going to be all she wrote in terms of aggression between these teams. And it is kind of like what you said, right? Late game, I'm looking at Yamoja, Hell, Kamazotz, even though it's only going to be for himself. All of them are going to survive a lot of these fights. But the same thing over there. You bring the Amaterasu, who's really good at shutting things down, fuse it with Chang'e, and all of a sudden I think we're in for maybe some lengthy team fights in the late game as well. Yeah. It might not just be a long match. It might end up being, 4 or 5 minutes of fighting, depending on how well these teams are able to pull apart. And so those will be interesting moments to tackle. But right now, I think what we're starting to see is a little of the discrepancy, specifically Aggro had highlighted. He doesn't necessarily like this Chang'e in mid, because early on, Paul, as of right now, has just been controlling the waves.
Yeah, just push it out early on, and that's kind of what you expect when you've got this Chang'e Bacchus situation for Spacestation Gaming. I'm not too worried about them. I think the biggest key for Spacestation this game, with the comp they've drafted, is how well this Bacchus and Chang'e can combine to focus out a target. Remember what Ryan was saying on the desk there as well, anti-heal on Chang'e, obviously from the Moonflower Waltz, but the Belch as well from Bacchus, both at 50% anti-heal. You both hit a single target, they are no longer sustaining. So the focus from Spacestation is burst a target down when the anti-heal is applied where possible. Sure, Hell will be priority number 1 where possible with the flop into the Belch option. But we'll just see if anybody else gets isolated, because it could be a bigger thing. I think the other thing to really look at is how the individual lanes go once these supports and junglers start to group with the mid laners again once more. What will we see this Heimdall that Zap's been playing so much of and doing so well with do up against this Cupid? Will that just be a stalemate lane for the most part? I expect so, but I'm hoping that we see Zap trying to take it to this vote a little bit here.
Well, Cuvo looking to get aggressive onto Cherry in his own jungle, comes in, takes the speed buff, and it doesn't look like they care too much about the kill. They just wanted to make sure he knew his place, take the buff away, but it does open him for the aggression over here around the blue buff to try and steal that. Nika in a similar position, can't really get out of his tower line to try and fight this one. And so the Knights read that exactly the way they need to. They don't care about the kills, they only care about the farm. As such, they're still about 200 gold behind, but that's a great way to take a punch to SSG.
Definitely, but notice exactly how that played out too. Neilmar rotates earlier on this Yamoja. Bacchus was still in lane with the Cupid, just helping him out through this early game struggles. And that opened a window there with Neil being already in mid, that it was a 3-on-2 environment around that middle area. And it just allows PK to abuse the situation of the man advantage and keep Spacestation on the back foot. And as I said, I don't think any team's going to run away with it here, so I've got a real feeling as this one goes on, we're going to go deep. But we did just see an ult trade on that left-hand side there go between the Hunters as Cherio's over there.
I think what this is going to maybe showcase, and specifically for Zapman, I am saying this knowing he got first blooded, but I feel like out of the last X amount of games from the Knights, right, he's played this Heimdall, and he continually gets out at 100 or less HP, right? It's almost always on that Bifrost. And so as much as I want to anticipate some action over there, I just feel like Zapman has some sort of built-in immunity right now that's saving him in the Pro League.
Yeah, I'll say it really is for me. Zapman's use of the Bifrost, which I think is, funny enough, I think is the strongest thing in Heimdall's kit is that Bifrost. It's the ability to teleport around the map, reposition quickly if you do short hops. And I think Zap's one of the first hunters that has really identified the use cases of, well, wait a second, I've got one of my Bifrost options in the dual lane. I'll rotate towards mid or get greedy and go into the jungle to take a fight. And if I get pressured, well, I'll be back in lane again anyway. It's almost being used a little bit from Zap as almost a free teleport to get around the map and make an influence with man advantage.
And even weirder, it lets him play directly into his one more wave mentality. I mean, he could be 100 health in a fight in mid lane, like you said, and then when he's back in duo lane, getting the farm that he so desperately wants. And usually, at least in stream terms, ranked games ends up resulting in his death. We'll have to see if SSG can maybe find ways to punish him for it here. As of right now, I mean, you had kind of highlighted it, but it's been slow going for these teams. No one's looking for the fights. They're trying to find things like this. A buff invade onto the purple here from Vote. He's just going to take a little bit of poke. Cherio's in the neighborhood. Normally, I want to start hyping it up. Something's going to happen. Someone's going to break, but SSG Northern Knights are really looking to break anyone down. Unless they can catch him out like this, Neil is just going to get locked in place. That's just a result of pathing there. SSG laying in wait for that. Now they're up 2-0.
Yeah, and the funny thing about that, it was pressure onto Zap's purple buff from Vote. Vote falls back in the jungle towards where Cherio was trying to lure Zap in. And it forces Neil to make a rotation there. And Dardes realizes there's a 3-angle pincer. So a quick wax in move, no beads available for Neil there. We're going with the sprint option at the start, or should I say Heavenly Agility, which I think will come into play a little bit later. Honestly, it was just a really good pick from Spacestation early on.
You can tell they want to turn that aggression. The small lead they have, granted, actually not much of a lead. It's honestly in favor of the Knights here. Still, but by much, 300 gold, but still something that they want to try and make grow. And they're trying to turn that aggression somewhere else, but you're all-inning all your damage onto Raffer. That stun doesn't connect quite from Neil, and so that's not going to be an easy one to find. It's just so interesting. We've seen this a few times, and I think these are two teams that it almost feels like this will end up happening. Let's say 15 minutes. I'd give it another 7 here, where it could be this pace, right? Methodical, you can tell they're looking for farm, they're not overextending, everyone is playing to the node. And then something's going to happen, and we're going to end up at 10 kills. It's just going to come out of nowhere, and all of the fighting's going to start. And I'm wondering, how that's going to break through right now as you watch it. No big pressure on the left-hand side of the map since the Fury spawned. Cherio has been more than content to just sit back and farm.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a couple of options to that left side, and when he's gone there, he's found kills. But I like Kivo's focus towards Raffer a little bit here, trying to pin him down, but Neil's in trouble.
And there's the River's Rebuke to help lock down Raffer, and that's going to be the rotation for Paul. He misses just slightly on the ability, still has the damage to be able to lock him in. A little help from the Harpy there to make sure that one comes their way. So a good pick for the Knights, but notably, most of these picks, at least the last two, have happened on the supports of all things. You're not maybe getting the most impactful kill. Looks like Vote wants to change that out. Finds a good Fields of Love onto Zap. But there's the ult, and there's his 100 health bar coming into effect.
Just burn the beads, dude. Just use the ult earlier. He used ult and beads because he was trying to just walk out of that Fields of Love without taking the actual mez that comes with it, and that cost him a ton. But now the rotation's here from PK.
And just like we had said, the action just seems to pop off out of nowhere. Cherio with a good rotation finds that kill. Zap stayed in lane, had some sustain. He's going to be able to be here, but not enough for Paul to keep him going. Now you've got Cubo here, and there's just enough low health bars on SSG to try and turn this around. But
Dardes
keep finding the kills. It's 3 for 2 so far. Dardes does unfortunately lose his life, but now it's a battle. Vote versus Cubo. Who can come out on top? It looks like the Camazotz is running away with this one. Flaps his wings a couple of times, and he's happy with those kills. Just a bloodbath 10 minutes in.
Yeah, delay triple there, and that all starts because Vote and Zapman in the duo lane trade out early on. Zap uses his bees, uses his Fields of Love, and his ult to escape. Like, he's done at that point, right? Like, there's nothing else he can do in that engagement. So the rotation in from PK to try and answer back what Vote did ends up being punished because Space Station are right behind them for a second or two. But then PK had Cubo Fred, and Cubo just manages to pick up multiple kills there after ability losses. And funny enough, I was going to mention this solo lane there, Gore, because that's where I expected the pressure would come from. The fact this tier 1 tower's down puts more pressure on Nika.
Not just a little bit of pressure either. The tier 1 being gone, the River's Rebuke even being used, and Nika using his blink there just to make sure he stays safe. SSG, maybe uncharacteristically losing over here in the solo lane. Not what we expected from the Osiris. That's been a big lane for Scary D, and that means even better for his rotations coming up here. I mean, even now, still applying a lot of pressure around this blue buff. And they still have Neil in the area. They're looking for something. I don't know if SSG are willing to fight here, but that's the Knights' pressure coming to fruition.
Okay, well, Zap, you just saw there straight away. This time we'll use his ult because he's not got beads available to stick and around. I do want to touch on Vote's build as well here. He's gone for the Bloodforged option, which I think is a wise idea. Get that power early in these engagements. And also, it'll allow that power to help him with the sustain that he's going to have from the hearts too. So it's going to allow him to just continue to box out a little bit earlier before the ramp of Zap with those Devourers going. Rapha's eating way too much damage.
This is the engagement I was waiting for around the Fury, but Raffer dead before anybody on SSG can come in to help him. And it almost is exactly like that pinch onto Neil earlier, where he's just wrong place, wrong time. There's nothing bad about what he's inherently doing. The Knights just happen to be set up for it. Find themselves in a good position, and it's opened up. I mean, look at Cuvo. He is running deep into the jungle here. He's looking for a gank.
He's
5-0. No fields of love, no beads. He should be able to find some lockdown. Does he want to dive the tower? The answer is yes. He's going to go in for it. This is a brave dive, but he goes up into the ult. One more hit will do it. The Aegis going to be able to keep Vote alive. Wow. They have to leave him alone. Well played by Vote.
At the same time, though, go mid lane. You see Cherio taking out Paul there. They realize the pressure from Cuvo to the duo lane is good, but that means it's opened up a window in mid, and Paul gets caught napping for his second death of the game now. And that gives Spacestation a bit of a window there. But Cuvo Fred's play, by the way, around that left-hand side. I know they don't get the kill there, but his decision-making of just being patient, waiting to use his ultimate for the final strikes, I think he did a really good job of managing his tower aggro there.
Being able to manage his time as well, make sure that ult was up. Right now it needs to save him a little bit more. No Waxing Moon available for Dardes. So it looks like Cuvo's going to be able to, again, walk away. Not happy, but safe, I guess, is the best way to describe it for him here as they get away. All 5 of the Knights' kills sitting on their jungler right now. And the fact that he's more than willing to look for more, he's got a level lead over Cherio. I mean, the aggression that's coming down from Cherio is almost uncharacteristic.
Yeah, well, honestly, I think with Cuvo Fred, he's doing a great job. I think Neil could be in a bit of trouble here. Great cleanse from Paul, though.
Yeah, they're going to be able to keep him alive a little bit longer, but the chase is still on. Dardes, there's that Waxing Moon, off cooldown, finds the stun, but Cubo's back, and you don't want to be facing him if you're SSG, although the numbers advantage is going to play its way for them. They still lose their tier 1 tower, while all of that's going on. Kind of an interesting development for them. Their structures are falling before they can win any of these fights, even though they're up by 2 kills. It's not amounting to much.
No, and mainly this has come from the gold lead that you see here that PK have has been the successful invades on the right-hand side consistently. It's also been the towers going down too. I mean, that's 1,000 gold in just 2 tier 1 towers, and that left-hand side tower too that PK have to take down to Spacestation Dame is on his last legs. So overall, that's 1,500 gold, and the coffers as an advantage available here so far for PK. Sure, they're not winning the battles outright in kills, but they are still holding on here. This is still going to be a battle of attrition, and it's the 2 junglers that are the focal points for now.
Well, they're making a play for the Fury this time. If you want a gold lead and you need to turn it into something more, this is the way to do it. But Bacchus, with that ult not available, is going to not have that same steal potential you'd expect to see. River's Rebuke going to be able to lock in Cherio, the jungler, forced to jump out using his ult there. Going to stay alive right now for SSG. Are they going to be able to survive the onslaught? Scary D is not ready to stop. He's going to be able to get the Lord of the Afterlife onto Dardes. Forces the Aegis, not going to be enough to keep him alive this time. They dive the tier 2 tower long enough to find the kill. And Nika not rotating this time around. Going to split push as long as he can. Still leaves the Knights open for a Fury. Only Raffer and Voter in the neighborhood.
And it's a good point that Scary D making this rotation really helped out. But what they're doing here, PK Gore, is they're trying to keep Raffer at bay as long as possible. Make him use those abilities defensively. And Bacchus is just a walking drunk at that point. He's not doing anything else for the team. All he can really do is drop the Intoxicate and walk away and hope for the best.
Yeah, I can't count how many times through years of Smite. Granted, not a lot this year, but we've seen Bacchus come in a good Intoxicate. Usually enough to steal an objective away if you can find the right spot for it. Unfortunately, not able to get in there for that Fury. Maybe holding on to it, recognizing that they're already behind. Yeah. Let the zone go off what it is. Let the Knights have it and try to figure out the next team fight. Because as of right now, SSG, I mean, all of their ults essentially were just used defensively.
For the most part, yeah, they were in that engagement. There wasn't much they could really do. I think the biggest thing Spacestation game, when you look at them now, is they are losing in the jungling experience and in the solo lane. So they need to just kind of weather the storm for now. And you're kind of looking at Vote MBK here to try and turn this around when we get towards a little bit more of a grouping and team fights. Around 17 minutes with the gold Fury down, that's going to happen a lot quicker than people may expect now, because Pyro will be focused, and I'm hoping Vote can start to help out his team a little bit more. He's done great pressure in this lane so far to keep Zap at bay, but he's going to be looked at to help out in these fights, especially with Amma being behind, and especially with Rama being behind. So, Raven being behind too.
This could honestly end up being history in the making. I mean, 3 levels down for Nika on Amaterasu, not something that we're used to seeing. That Pyromancer getting shredded pretty fast by the Knights as well. There's pressure all around the map again. Rapper unable to just get into the fight for this one. Although, again, maybe not worthwhile, as it's going to pop off in 2 spots. That man locked down into the Fields of Love, but there's that Bifrost. Cherio looks for the read, going to be able to find the jump, find the lockdown, find the kill. On the right-hand side of the map, nothing came out of that. They are able to still get 1 kill, but is he gonna be caught out? Good stun and good movements from the support, Neil, handing that one to Paul on a silver platter.
Love the idea from SSG there. Vote forces Zatman to use his beads again, and Aegis, funny enough. Well, that was mainly Cherio, if I'm honest. But yeah, he uses the Bifrost defensively, but Cherry sees the Bifrost location and is like, well, I'm just going to wait here, because when he tries to teleport away, I'm going to be sat waiting. Good little play from Cherio to pick it up, but he got rotated on too quickly, and PK answer it back in spades. But Vote is still causing problems. 1, 1, and 6. He's been involved of 7 of the 8 kills Space Station have. Cupid could be the answer to turn this around for Space Station.
They definitely need the help at this point, right? You say 1, 1, and 6, and I'm like, you know, that's good. Then I look over and see 6, 0, 0, and I'm like, that's just a little bit better.
You know, yeah.
It's just, he's just a threat at this point. But that does maybe bring up the conversation. Scary D has been a big impact, level 19 compared to Nika's 15 right now, who still is having trouble getting some of that farm online. But all of the kills being on Cuvo makes me think that if you can kill Cuvo off at the beginning of a fight, maybe the Knights won't have as much follow-up to find any of those kills that they've been able to pick up so far.
I do agree. The only problem with that, though, is that, you know, Kamazos is really good at surviving terrible situations of being focused first. And if you blow your load trying to kill Cuvo when he survives, then you're going to be at a detriment for yourselves, too. So it's really just keeping an eye on where the focus will come from. One thing we've not really mentioned yet, Gorb, because we were so focused on the sustain meta of this matchup. Look at this hard CC is one thing I want to mention. There's not a whole lot of hard CC on the Pittsburgh Knights here. You're looking at a lot of secondary CC, a lot of soft CC, slows for the majority of the time, which is really going to be a little bit more, well, lackluster compared to what you see from Space Station. Roots are a little bit more powerful, knockups too, stuns as well, are on the side of Space Station Gaming. So when it comes to the CC battle, it's going to be about Paul and those cleanses, which we've seen some of too. Can he land those in the right moments, but also still put out the healing that is going to be required and the damage?
Yeah. And you have to factor all of that in with Cherio and Dardes both having abilities that just give them immunity, right? So it's like all of this, and they have 2 people that are instantly difficult to lock down. And that's enabled them for something that I just now noticed and I never thought I would see, but a Blink Chang'e from Dardes. I guess you don't necessarily need the beads. He grabs the Aegis, but he's gone for Blink, which isn't necessarily on my list of relics that I expected to see for a Chang'e in mid.
It's a confident play, but I've seen plenty of mid lane mages, specifically out of Europe more than anyone else over the years, that are quite happy to go with more of an aggressive option. Like you said, you know, he does have the ability to, you know, escape with a CC immune ability in his kit to escape danger, so almost a technical free beads. But then it's always nice to have that secondary beads, you know?
Yes.
This is going to allow them for a bit of a better engage, especially when you look at how Raph has been doing this game. He's having a hard time getting in to initiate these fights. Well, Darda's Blink initiating for them could be a really good setup option to allow Rafa, to allow Cherio to follow up off that engage. We'll see how it plays out, because this Oni Fury spawning, we're going to see action again here soon.
You had mentioned the sustain, which I think is going to come into play over these next few fights, but I see a Toxic Blade, a Brawlers, a Divine Ruin. They're at least prepared for it. Even the Curse Ankh here on the side of SSG, on top of what you had highlighted earlier with Chang'e and Bacchus. Maybe something to be said for SSG. As the Oni Fury started up by the Knights, going to get leashed. They're just looking for the bait. Watch Neil, because those Riptides can be pesky at pulling someone apart, but SSG are gonna go ahead and fall back from this one. The Knights just seem to be in complete control.
Great zone work, Gore. That's all that was. Scary D and Cuvo Fred picked their targets. Cuvo's like, come on, Nika, I'll take if you come this way. And Scary D stands in front of 3, 4 there around that red buff area and goes, well, you're going to walk through me first. And if you want to do that, we will kill you. So Space Station, give up the goose. They can't fight into that. But PK feeling so confident here. Go, look at him. Let's just try that again at the FG. Why not? If they don't want to fight us, we'll start this one up too.
Oh, they're gonna, like you say, start it up almost with reckless abandon. They're going in on Raffer. The belly flop gonna be enough to at least get him away for now. It's a fight on 2 fronts. Cuvo left isolated, but SSG aren't gonna bite down on him, at least not just yet. Nico looks to be going in, but it's Raffer on the mid lane. He's gonna get locked down. There's that Intoxicate. It's not enough to turn anything around. It's Zap gonna get credit for the kill, but now they're in here. Nika's ready to go. The Mystic Rush from Cherio locks down 2. He gets himself a double kill, and now it's just trying to find the systematic elimination of the Knights, but they're locked up by Cuvo. They end up locking him down. He's got himself a double kill, and he's looking to burn on more. A triple kill for the Camazotz. Slough trying to chase down Vote. 1 more kill is all you need to get the deicide. It's going to take him a little bit of time, but Vote's still going to fall. The quadra kill for Cuvo Fred. 10-0. Go ahead and take your Fire Giant.
Now, if you think about how that fight started, too, that was PK focusing onto Raffer in that engagement. Raffer dies. Space Station finally group up to help him out and turn that fight around. But that just leads Cuvo to the farm, to where all the kills are in mid lane. And he picks apart the whole of Space Station Gaming. And that started with PK starting on this Fire Giant. The CC chain and the problems in that middle lane, this Bacchus pick has not worked out for Space Station Gaming. Aggro on the desk mentioned maybe a Kuzumbo. I understand the thought process of this Bacchus, but PK's coming out on top here.
Raffer giving everyone a little bit of a heart attack, still causing a little bit of trouble there for Neil. So can he get close enough? Can he get his cooldowns in time? The answer seems to be no. Goes in for the steal, loses the Fire Giant, doesn't get the kill on the Neil. Ends up just watching the game black and white one more time. Like you said, this Bacchus maybe just not hitting the spots that it needs to.
No, and that's mainly down to PK knowing how to play around the Bacchus, honestly, Gormizer, because what's happening here is every time Bacchus is around, they are focusing him down. Notice that pick in mid lane that we saw happen when the quadra happened for Cuvo. Raffer dies first, but it was Scary D latching onto Vote and latching onto Raffer at the same time. They bait Raffer into protecting Vote and then switch their attention to that Bacchus and take him out before he can do anything else. I do like the fact you see Raffer here looking for a bit more protection, looking for that Spirit Robe, just reduce the CC a little bit more so. Not simply reduce, but mainly give him more procs when he is CC chained. And Neilmar, yet again, is having a great game on the Yemoja. Neil's arguably one of the top 2 Yemoja players right now in the league. And I know there was a lot of talk about Amaterasu coming into this game, Gore. Undefeated for Nika. It might not be the case with how this is going. This could be Nika's first loss on Amaterasu.
It's history in the making, just not the kind you want if you're an SSG fan, right? You're not wanting to watch this pick go down. But like you said, with everything that's been going on in these fights, and honestly, when it comes down to it, kind of just Cuvo right now, it is causing too much trouble for SSG. Even now, trying to figure out how to defend one of these tier 2 towers. They're going to save the one in right, but it costs them this tower in mid. They're going to be able to ward off the Knights pretty well here, but I don't know if it's going to last long.
Love that call, though, from PK. Split the map apart. We're winning these engagements, and when teams rotate in, don't worry, where's Camazotz? Wherever he is, people will die. So they take a tier 2 in mid, and they're continuing to pressure as the 3-man sustain stack with Zapman here on the right side is going to cause them a lot of problems to defend. And look at the flank from Scary D.
Yeah, him, Cuvo, sitting in the back line, just waiting for someone on SSG to make a mistake, and they can't really split the difference here if you're SSG. You had to fall back under the Phoenix, and this is where it comes up. I mean, with Fire Giant enabled, they still have it for a minute and a half. Can SSG defend this reliably, or are they going to lose a Phoenix here?
They can defend this if they do it right, but I think PK's playing this the correct way. Putting the damage dealers in the mid lane is forcing 2 people to defend, and I don't think Cherio and Nika can take on Cuvo, Fred, and Scary D at the moment. We'll find out, because this action's going to start in the mid lane first.
Scary D just walks at them and dares them to try and call his bluff, and it's going to work. They try to call it. It's not going too well for Cherio, but Satman on the right-hand side gets taken down by Raffer. The aggression in mid is getting paid for over there and right. Seem like SSG have enough follow-up. The sustain really coming through. Paul, Neil put together. That just seems unkillable all in all. And so they do manage to defend the Phoenixes, and they get Zappa. It's a little bit of a cherry on top, although maybe not as much as they need right now to get back in the game.
No, but I think that was a really good example of exactly how PK have been playing and Spacestation have been playing. Notice Rafa was the one that got the kill and engaged that there. We'll come back to that though, because Primal Fury being looked at by Nika, who's going to look for a cheeky steal. Reinforcements on the way.
He's got the dazzling offensive available. There's 3 members of the Knights just laying right around the corner. He starts it back up, just under. SSG walk in, scoop it away from the Knights as they're forced to retreat. And the Knights, almost uncharacteristically for the last 27 minutes, they've been all in for these fights. They're running away, and it's going to be Cherio who instead initiates with the blink, looks for the lockdown, and keeps that Mystic Rush. Paul going to get stunned out in the backline by Nika. Seems just very disconnected all in all from SSG. They don't know who they want to go in on, and they can't get the kill on the Paul. The sustain is too good, and now the River's Rebuke locks down 3 from Neil, forces the Mystic Rush and all of the jumps from SSG to try and get out of there, but it leaves them with no escape. Cherio locked down between 3. Zapman, credit for the kill. We had Cuvo finding another in the process there, and it's just going to be dominoes at this point. 3 down for SSG. The Knights looking to be able to get back aggressive. Fire Giant's worn off, though, Hindu, and that might slow him down.
But it was a great fight from PK there. Notice they give up that Fury and Spacestation keep chasing through the jungle, realizing I guess they don't want to fight. But it was because PK weren't 5-man stacked. As soon as the stack gets together again, they're on the advantage, and this could just be game. PK might take this from Spacestation here, Gore.
2 people left to try and defend. No ults here for SSG. The work is cut out for them. The Titan gonna start taking damage. What can they do? Vote versus the world alongside Raffer, and it doesn't seem like they have enough to stun. The CC, though it might not be a lot, is going to be enough to find the lockdown. Even a kill at that as the Knights come through, end Nika's win streak, and take game number 1.
50% anti-heal on Chunga, 50% anti-heal on Bacchus. And still, the sustain was just too much to handle there. The one time on defense goal that you saw, that right-hand side Phoenix, where they pick Zapman, that was the only time we really got to see that Bacchus be useful, and that's because Cuvo Fred and, of course, his teammate in the solo lane, Scary D, were in that middle area. That was a small window, and Spacestation just overstep after that Fury and lose the game off that, but I got their mentality. The sustain option, we expected it to be a battle of attrition, and PK came out on top. They look great.
Maybe a shuffle of bans going into game number 2. Try to take away at least the Umoja, maybe the Hell. Either way, I mean, they had anti-heal, like you said, kind of everywhere they needed it, and still weren't able to find it. But maybe the Knights have figured out SSG. They could be the second team to do so. We'll have to find out in game number 2, which will come back right after this break.
Welcome back to the SPL. PK finally upset win up against SSG, but it is only one win. A long way to go still to get the full set victory. But I did want to remind you all that we have partnered up with Prime Gaming. The Code Eater Bakasura skin is out there right now. If you want to enjoy this skin, then just try !Prime in chat. Find out more about all the ways that you can get involved, unlock this skin. And then you may feel a little bit bad about yourself because you're playing Bakasura, but at least you'll be in a really cool skin while you're fragging your enemies easily because you're on Bakasura. Now, Aggro, we have to talk a little bit about what happened here in this game, because for me, this did come down, pretty obviously to Cuvo. He was a huge difference in this one, but Neil had a great fight in that last one on that Yamoja too. How did this one go awry for SSG?
It was the right side of the map just did not stand up to the pressure from PK, and that is typical for whenever PK looks really good. It's because the right side of their map is dominant. That has been the common thread for this team basically all year, and it's only happened against the bottom end. Here it happens against one of the best teams in the whole league, 0-0-12 for Scary D on the Osiris. He had a 2-3 level lead for a majority of this game. Fred, a clean 12-0 from him, and really looking dominant against the jungler in Cherio, who I think is playing near the top of the league right now, right there just behind Sam for Soccer. Fred just jungle diffed him this game, and I think that says a lot, because Fred, I think, was a big reason why PK was so inconsistent for the vast majority of this year. He's been looking great as of late on this PK win streak. Does not surprise me that those two coincide.
No, not at all. I talked to Neil after their win, what was it, yesterday or Friday, and he was talking about how Cuvo had a big adjustment to make. His role is a lot different on PK than it was in some of his past teams, like when he was on Dig. And they know that he had the potential to play like this all along, and it just took some time for them to really get into the groove, for him to really settle in and understand how he worked within this team. And I think we saw it here today, man. He was everywhere around the map, and so is Cherio. Cherio had a great start to this game, but eventually he just wasn't able to keep up. And we talked to Hindu afterwards. He said a big part of it was just that SSG was over-committing a bit, and Cuvo got to bring out the broom and come in and clean up some of these fights, but there were plenty of them where he was the difference maker as well.
Absolutely. He was just accurate on this canvas odds, and that's really all you need to be, is accurate with this god, because he'll do the damage for you if you land your shots, and Fred has been red hot on this pick recently. Wouldn't be surprised to see this get banned away in the second phase in particular, because this has just been a comfort pick for him these last few games. And as I said, I think that really where Fred and Scary go, PK go, which is not always what I think teams or people expect when you think about PK. They probably think a lot about Paul and a lot about Zap, but I really think the two most important members of this team are Fred and Scary.
And we got to make sure we are giving Scary credit. Who else is playing Osiris right now? Nobody. And he took the hands to Nika on Amaterasu. Nika, I think him and Fine OK are a push for our best solo laners, and Scary just dominated him this last game. So absolutely impressive. We'll see if he has a chance to do that again. Let's get into the picks and bans for game number 2 and see what kind of adjustments are going to have to be made. SSG are in the first pick spot this time around and down the game to PK. But I don't know, something in me tells me that SSG aren't going to go down 2-0 here, that they're going to come back in fighting in this next game.
You think about how SSG's games have gone against a team like Ghost, who oftentimes can do what PK just did to them, kind of snowball the game, get out of control. A lot of times it's a stomp for Ghost game 1, a stomp for SSG game 2, and then historically it's been a stomp for Ghost again in game 3, but that's neither here nor there. SSG has proven to me that they are able to mentally bounce back from tough games and kind of get themselves back into a set. I just want to see them change up the pick for Dardes in mid.
Yep.
Changa, just very, very uninspired for me. I also don't think Raffer had a really big impact on this game with that Bacchus. I want to see them go a different direction with those two picks in particular.
Those are the ones where they did the most deviating from what we normally see from this team, and I don't think either one of them were under that much strain. I know there were quite a few mid-bans, but certainly Dardes could still have played something a bit more standard if he wanted to. They thought the Chang'an Bacchus and that anti-heal was going to be critical here, but perhaps not realizing the real problem was that they weren't able to keep it up throughout the entire fight, and then eventually Cuvo Fred had all this sustained damage later on. So let's catch up on these bans real quick. So far, so normal from PK, Hera, and Aphrodite. Those are standard Dardes bans. But take a look over here at SSG. The hell getting banned in this time. A little bit of respect going towards Paul in mid because those are all 3 Paul bans.
Triple banned for Paul, which is kind of par for the course for him at this point in his career, I suppose. Dardes also eating 2 bans. So 5 mages off the board already. But SSG now have their pick. Do they want to go that ROM that was banned in the last game? They decided to top pick the Ama. I can't say I blame them, man. Just one game where Nika loses his first loss on Amaterasu this phase. I think I'm giving him the run back, giving him a chance to right the ship on his signature god.
Yes, certainly at this point, right? He's done enough proof. And look at this, the Osiris coming in, not just a pick in response to mid lane healing. I think Scary D might like this. And for what it's worth, it wasn't so much that Scary D was bodying the Chang'e this game. He had a 3-level lead over Nika, basically just off of the laning phase, telling Nika to prove that he could do better in the one-on-one this time is what it feels like to me.
I agree, and I like it. Now, I don't think that PK needed to take it here. They could have gone
Agreed.
Rom or Cupid, gotten their priority hunter alongside Sobek, and then picked Osiris before the next ban phase, and still been okay. But this allows PK to see more of the draft. I just wonder what these mid laners are going to go to now, Finch. I feel like you almost have to go to a mid lane pick here because there's already been 5 mages taken off the table. Can your god pool get through another round of bans on either side? I'm not sure that it can. SSG is going to take their shot at it, though. They go Erlong Rom. I love these picks, and I think that in a vacuum that is better. I'm just a little bit worried about what Dardes is going to end up going to down the line.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think that even if they think the Chang'e was just a bad game, it feels less valuable with that Osiris pick this early, almost to work as a deterrent. And now Paul picking up this Morrigan early on, obviously a really strong pick in and of itself, with some great transformation targets already, with the Ama out there, and even potentially being able to try to go for a double frontline or something like that. But I think this just feels good in Paul's hands, right? Something he could build Doom Orb on and run at you in the jungle in stealth, and catch you out with a bunch of burst damage.
Hey, a 70% win rate across 10 games, 7 out of 10 times this Morrigan pick wins, and I like the option already for that Amaterasu as a transformation target. Nothing else really gets me excited if I'm playing the Morrigan in this game so far, but there's still 4 picks to go. You're going to get some pretty decent ultimates. Almost certainly whatever Fred ends up taking will probably end up being pretty strong, as Chang'e, Poseidon are the bans, 2 gods that Dardes has played whenever his signature picks have been banned out. I mean, they're really physical heavy already here, Finch, but part of me wonders if he's going to go to a hunter in the mid lane because he's been so comfortable on those picks. Also very surprised for what it's worth that we don't see this Camazotz get banned away. I mean, Tsukiyomi certainly scary, but he just did it to you on the Camazotz. I'm a little surprised that we don't either see. I think if I were in SSG's shoes, I think I would have gone Tsukiyomi and Camazotz banned away. Let Zap reprise that Heim because he was pretty far behind in that lane up until the game started to snowball in PK's favor.
I'm surprised he goes at the Hachiman here too, with Cupid still open. I know the ROM was taken off the board, but he wants this Hachiman. And you and I were talking about this back during the SCC set about how we're not even so sure that Hachiman is 3rd, right, or 4th necessarily, but Zapman likes this pick. He gives him a lot of safety over there in that lane. It can obviously stick around a lot with the mana sustain too, so certainly not a bad pick by any means. But now this Kuzenbo comes in for Raffer, something that we thought he probably should have taken back in Game 1. This is really going to enable him to be active and be able to affect these fights right from the get-go as, whoa, is this Freya mid being hovered? Or maybe Rom mid?
I think it would be Rob mid. We've seen Dardes do it before. Yeah. I kind of like this idea. Yeah, take it. Give this over to Vote. I want to see the Rom in the mid lane. He still brings wave 1 pressure, which is still very important in mid. A little bit less so, admittedly, than in duo, but getting that early clear is fine. Morrigan is a pretty decent god at clearing quickly once she hits level 6, 7, but by that point, Rom should be able to match that fairly well. I like it. I like what SSG has come up with. I was thinking that Dardes might go to a hunter mid. It just didn't even occur to me that he might take the one that's already on the board.
We should have seen it. Maybe PK missed it too, but I'm wondering, would you rather have had Hachiman or Cupid if you're going to be laning into this Freya? I mean, I don't see any particular reason why maybe Hachiman would have a better matchup there, but maybe PK saw it and preferred to have the Hachiman against a potential mage ADC in lane.
Could be. I feel like I'd rather have Cupid just because of how good the cripple is up against the Rom, the Erlong, and the Ama later on in the game.
Agreed.
But if you can get something like Hachiman that can be a little bit more aggressive early than some other hunters, play aggressive with that dash, try and set this Freya behind as she normally does fall, I think it can be a very, very good spot. I'd expect to see Fred over in duo early and often because I don't see how this Freya really lives through the Camazotz dive.
No, I mean, a cringe gate seems to be in order here, right, for Camazotz. I mean, plenty of pressure, anything to make sure this Freya is behind, as she normally is. SSG down 0-1 to PK. Gore, how do you see this next one going, bud?
Well, it's going to be spicy, I think, no matter what, as we come into this one. The Freya coming out for Vote Hindu. It's a different take, but you get Kivo back on Camazotz. You get Scary D back on the Osiris, and the Morrigan getting to jump in for the Knights. I mean, it's a good amount of flavor coming out into this game.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about the Morrigan pick here of like what really the options are going to be for him to turn into, you know? I mean, a lot of the ultimates here, it's probably going to be a Freya, I would say, or maybe the Camazotz for Cubo Fred. This could be an interesting game, though, because I really do like Spacestation's front line this game. Amaterasu, Erlang Shen, and Kuzenbo. Expect to see Cherio try and get work done with this Erlang Shen. It got banned away from him in Game 1. And when you look at Spacestation's backline here in Freya and Rama, both of those can buy time with those ultimates for reinforcements to turn up. It's going to be a tricky task, I feel, for PK when we get to team fights to take out the carries. And the only option they're really going to have, Gore, is kill the front line. But which front line do you try and kill?
That's going to be a difficult choice, I think, when it comes down to it. And you also get Cherio now on top of this pick that has been very kind to them in the Erlong. And so, you know, all things considered, it goes back to, I want to say, maybe some similar conversations we were having last time. How well can Nika fare towards Scary D? Wow, that's going to be a good pluck from Neil. Not quite able to find the full knock-up thanks to the beads there from Vote, but you can already tell Neil is not going to be patient in this duo lane. And it feels very similar to last time. They want the aggression to be on their side as fast as they can.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing about that duo lane situation there is Agro was calling for on the desk to see Camazotz look towards that duo lane early. Well, if those beads are already on cooldown for Vote, one more pluck in the next 2 minutes, and it does set themselves up for a window. And that really just came about from better clearing the jungle early on. Obviously, Kuzenbo Freya are not going to clear as fast as a Sobek and a Hachiman. So already that established presence there is good, but that will sway back to around an even keel around the 6-7 minute mark.
Well, Neil had spotted Cherio out and was just kind of laying in wait, hoping he'd go for those oracles. And then he didn't take the bait. He goes back over to farm up here in mid lane. And it is kind of the jungle right now. I think I'm looking at more closely than anything. Scary D, Nika, how this one goes over time, I think is going to be very interesting to watch, although both of them kind of flirting with low health at this point. It is those junglers, you know, is Cubo Fred going to be able to find himself 12-0 again, or is it going to be a little bit more difficult, as you had highlighted, for him to get those kills online that made him so powerful? And kind of alternatively, is Cherio going to be able to maybe match what Cubo Fred even puts out on this Camazotz? Those are where my mind starts to drift to.
It's a good point, but I think the bigger key is in the early game as these two junglers fare, Erlang Shen is definitely looking for ganks earlier on where possible. Yeah. The pin setup is a good opportunity with the taunt that Erlang Shen provides as well to look for early gank pressure. However, the same cannot be said for Cubo Fred and this Camazotz. He should be looking for farm. Get those levels online as quick as possible as Neil Barr tries to contest this purple. Interesting.
Get in there, good push coming down from Raffer, at least to make sure he falls away. But nothing that's going to help secure the purple buff. In fact, they get the two that you maybe don't want out of there as you lock it down. But speaking of lockdown, Scary D going to get CC'd away into first blood.
Look at Cherry!
No mana, but they almost find the kill onto Cubo. You had mentioned Cherry needs these early ganks. He's going to be able to jump in here and at least find something, but that's going to be the teleport that comes through from Scary D. Now they have a 2-on-1 advantage.
I was going to say a little bit aggressive from Cherry there, but he's going to go in again towards Cubo, who rips away with the leap. Turnaround play, but now Cubo's out of mana. Scary there too. And Cherry's bit off more than he can chew, but maybe he can get this kill.
He's still looking for it. One last hit. Cubo almost blinks back to his demise, but manages to stay alive here as it comes to Cherio looking to try and say the same. Scary D, like you said, will pick that one up and at least equalize a little bit over here in the solo lane. They lose the first blood bounty, but he gets a kill that Nika didn't.
Yeah, a little bit overly aggressive from Cherio there. I think he thought he was going to have a bit more of a window, didn't recognize that Scary D's teleport was available in that moment, so didn't necessarily expect the turnaround from PK to make it a 1-for-1 there. But in that kill over in the solo lane, honestly, that was great play from Cherio, who body blocks everything Cubo threw out. And that's what I was kind of talking about with Spacestation's comp here. Very tanky front line, you know? And if they can juggle aggro and eat some of these shots that Cubo's putting out, so it shares the wealth of damage, it's going to be harder for them to really run away and find the picks they're after.
I can't think of anything scary than 3 bodies that can peel like that they have on SSG for something like a ROM and a Freya. Like late game, I'm thinking 25 minutes in, that's one of the most frightening things to have to go up against. You've got Raffer who can push you out of there, Nika that'll find a stun, and Cherio who at this point doesn't seem to have any qualms about just straight up fighting you if it comes down to it. And, I mean, this is how you had highlighted it. You want this Erlang Shen trying to find a lot of these ganks. The question will then be, you know, for Cubo, you had highlighted him wanting farm. Does he have to match the aggression from Cherio, or do they just have to accept it on the side of the Knights?
It's kind of based off where Cubo is on his rotation at the time, right? Is he farming the jungle up? Can he get to that gank and look for a counter opportunity late in the day? We kind of saw that in the solo lane already. But honestly, in my mind, if I'm Cubo, I'm looking to just keep farming, wait for the team fights to happen, because duo lane at the moment is handling things well as Neil catches Vote.
And Vote forced to go into that ult. Those beads still offline for another minute, and that's going to be the ult from Neil. He's going to have to pop out, and it's just enough damage between the flag and the lurking in the waters to make sure that Vote goes down. They don't get the purple buff, but who cares? You kill the Freya, and now they're looking for an invade on the red buff. Cherio might bite off more than he can chew if he comes in here. The pin goes out just a hint too late. That's going to give the Knights the advantage that they were finding, similar to Game 1, which was in stealing away those jungle buffs.
And if you notice, Space Station's actually finding small wins at the moment on the right-hand side of the map a little bit with that first blood kill. But again, the duo lane from PK is having a fun old time. I think Neil and Zap have really, since the World Championships on onwards, they've really started to establish themselves as a great duo lane partnership. It takes a long time to really build up trust in each other, but that gank specifically there, Zap throwing the banner over the wall and knowing Neil's going to follow up with the ultimate to get the kill. These guys are really controlling this laning phase effectively against, let's be honest, Rafa and Vote, who are 2 very established Europeans, but they've not got the experience of Neil and Zap playing together. They've only been together this year so far, and it has always been an interesting point for me of how Vote and Rafa have found their sort of, you know, work together. They're top of the league, so it's working out okay, but there is still things to work on there.
And it has been mentioned, but, you know, SSG at this point haven't really lost many sets this phase. The only 2 that they've lost so far have been to Ghost Gaming. And when you start to look instead at what's been going just between these 2 teams, it's been a 2-0 for them. They haven't really struggled much against the Knights in the weeks they've played, but it's been about 4, maybe 5, including that off week, since they got to figure out what the Knights have been doing. And the Knights have been on this hot streak. It's always the question coming into it. The fact that they have been on the rise from what felt like a 6th place team through and through, now all of a sudden tied for 3rd, looking to maybe even punch up and take down the 1st seed team. It's just so crazy to think of the dynamic that has shifted here for the Knights.
And I think this, with how the laning phases are going now, I'm quite surprised Nika's doing a much better job this game compared to last with how that laning phase has gone. And I think the pressure's not really been there. I say that as we just see Cubo sneaking around to that right-hand side for the first time. But Nika just holding his own now, being a bit more respectful of the Osiris. But not only that, that early gank from Cherio there to that lane has really relieved some of that pressure, because around this point was when you're looking at that solo lane going, well, Nika's tower took a ton of damage already, but it's a different tale of events so far in this second game.
It's a 100% win rate, you get an ego, right? Like 99% win rate, you know you can still fall, and so maybe you start giving the respect that is necessary over there. Because it was, I mean, teetering on the point where it was almost 4 levels between the 2 solo laners last time. Now they're both dancing at level 9. And so happy, and it's kind of slowed back down. This is very similar to Game 1 in terms of the pace, where no one's looking for the fight. They're looking for the farm. Cheerio, if you could find a good gank, will definitely stop by, but otherwise the Knights are more than content to just keep the pressure up. And it seems like there might be some sort of look at Raffer here. I don't know if they have the lockdown, especially you know, with Dardes in the area. No one's in a good position to really just step down and slaughter the other side.
Sure, it's more composition based than anything else that the early game is as slow as it is. I mean, Space Station, yes, they can play through Cherry in the early game if they find the window, but they've got a Rama and a Freya. Both of those just want to farm up and get their items online to really make an impact towards the mid and late stages of the game. So play relatively safe. It's more on PK to try and get action happening, and we got some in the duo lane.
And that was such a good stun from Zap, but he's got the peel that's necessary. Ult from Vote going to be able to find some damage, but he's not hitting all the shots, and there are 4 members of the Knights just waiting for him to come down. You're not living through that one. Zapman, though, stays alive. Scary D looking to try and do the same. Still has Lord of the Afterlife, so can get away if necessary. Jumps up, but Cheerio's waiting for you, and the Harpies going to be able to come through. Once again, this jungle camp looking to get a little bit of an assistance in here. Sneaka finds that one with the mirror, so they are equalizing at least 1 kill for 1 across the map.
So they do lose Vote on the left-hand side, sure. Scary D takes a while to die. Now, the only thing that really happened there is Rafa and Dardes were nowhere near that dual lane. They kind of abandoned Vote on his own there, and Vote was just too far forward. But look at this fight with Cheerio.
I mean, lockdown, just textbook, I think is the best way to describe that one. Exactly what you want to see out of the Erlang Shen, and exactly what you said we would see out of a ROM. Cuvo gets aggressive, or sorry, it's going to be Paul as Cuvo getting aggressive here. It's not going to be enough to find them. Both Dardes and Vote you had highlighted going into this game can go up into the sky, and it buys them that time that's necessary for the team to reply.
Exactly, and that's exactly how Dardes is going to handle this matchup, as is Vote, but Vote was just too far forward at the moment. Zap's getting confident in this lane now, and I like that. Get aggressive against Freya, try and make a waste of pulses on you and not the minion wave a little bit, and then punish afterwards. Oh, nearly caught him with the stun.
Zap is definitely feeling himself on this pick. Been doing it consistently. No beads available there for Vote, so something that could happen. Something about 10 minutes in these two teams just dictates, okay, now we fight, because they do not want to slow down. I mean, even Vote, no beads, half health, is walking up in his lane. Now Neil's lurking in the jungle. And this is where I would start to expect a little bit more out of SSG, because they're making a big rotation. But it's whether or not they can find the lockdown they want, or if they're looking maybe for some cheeky steals. We can see there's no buffs available, and now they're a little bit deep in the jungle. Zapman gonna get caught between two, and it's taking a lot of damage in the process. The horse gonna be able to get him out of there. Tier 2 tower safety line for him, and Neilma just seems to be too tanky, but they want to keep going. Hindu Cheerio is now gonna be the one who's in a bad position. The burst is good. Cuvo finds the kill thanks to Neil locking him down, and they just give it exactly what they need.
I've missed the player cams because seeing Zap smile there as he runs away his horse and Cheerio dies. It just shows the power of why they drafted Hachiman here. He wanted a get out of jail free card, and he got one with this Hachiman ultimate. 1 health is pretty much all he had there at the tail end, and it didn't do anything for him. But I like what we've seen from PK here. Try and get aggressive around the Fury with Nico on the other side and send Scary D over. The man advantage, can it help?
Oh, they're going to be jumping in, taking a lot of damage in the process, but Cuvo up in the ult, look to lock down Dardes. He's up in the sky, and now the snipes are going to ring true, but how many shots can he hit? One more will be the trifecta, but it's not enough damage. Vote forced into the sky as well, both defensively used here for the mid laner and the carry for SSG, and at least one of those two is going to go down, and it's exactly what you said during Game 1, applied here in Game 2. Patience from the Knights, keep them going. Now they're in for a rotation, Hindu. They're coming in. Rapper stunned out. This does not look good.
I'm not a big fan of this from Space Station, if I'm honest. Mana out for Rafa. Now he's running away from his life. He's going to go down next. Nika and Cherry out of the fray. Scary getting a bit too excited there, but maybe the fight continues because of it.
I mean, he wants to keep going. I think they're making the right call here. Fall back. There's a Gold Fury waiting for you. But does SSG want to leave him alone? I mean, Vote, Erlang, both are running forward at them. And it looks like the Knights not going to feel that confident in their ability to take the objective. They'll take the kills, now leading 6-3, and they'll just go ahead and let that one rest for a little while.
Yeah, I feel the front line from Space Station Gaming just a little bit lost there trying to protect their carries. Both Dardes and Vote use their ults defensively, but get some damage out. But as soon as they land, they get all in by PK. And the front line from Space Station wasn't really around to help them out again. They have to correct that from Space Station Gaming's point of view. PK, though, playing as a unit. notice, Gore, that as soon as Scary turns up, PK is like, okay, we are fighting now. As soon as Scary's around, it feels like PK come online as this 5-man unit. And Scary D led them to the promised land there in that engagement.
Didn't know if, on my 2020 bingo card, Osiris being the essential piece for a team was going to be on there. So if you had that one, I guess good for you, knowing that he was just going to come out of seemingly nowhere here for Scary D. I mean, picked up a few times throughout the year, but he hasn't been the go-to pick compared to your Cthulhus that have been strong over here. King Arthur, who's been on the rise lately. Scary D just likes to bring his own flavor. And we saw that, I want to say, earlier this year with Amaterasu. It was one of the bigger picks for him, but this has just been treating him well. Even now, he's at a level deficit. He's lost his tower, but he's still holding his own.
Neil Marr is probably, Neil's having a great game, by the way. I just want to point him out. He's level 11 right now, just a little bit behind, ahead of that of Rafa. But his plucks have been on point. It's a shame he's got 3 of the kills, because that goal would have been nice for another member of the team. And Sobek is the one causing a lot of problems for Space Station, burning these beads consistently, keeping the carries without them, is opening the window to allow Scary D to just CC chain them where possible, and even Paul to follow up if need be. As now Space Station, they're the ones getting on the aggressive, as Scary D now trying to answer back that tier on the right side.
Well, the map state, if you covered up the team names, it looks pretty similar to what it did last game, both in tier 1 and mid and in right gone now. Cuvo getting pressured out, and you had highlighted it, but yeah, Cuvo at this point I think would love to have 3 extra kills under his belt, put him more where he was in game 1 than where he is right now in game 2.
This will be fast. This will be fast.
This is a start for the Gold Fury. It's going down quickly between a Freya and a Rom. You don't have much to
Oh, he stole it!
Walk in and take it, Neil, making sure his name is heard and spoken. Who cares about the kills? You can fall back if you're the Knights, but they might not even want to. They're looking to find an isolated kill, and who better than this Amaterasu, who's just so far from her team. They force Nico away, and that is just a good steal from the Knights.
I'll be honest, I'm not sure if that was Banner from Zap or Neil's lurking in the waters that secured that, but that was a good little play from PK again. And if it was Neil, man, he is having a great set so far. Game 1, his Yemoja was outstanding, multiple Rivers Rebukes. Game 2, he's finding plucks. He's helping to set up his team along the way. Neil's been a sleeper support for me for years. I'm really glad he kind of popped off the end of last year, but he's showing again why he should be touted as one of the best supports in the game right now.
Someone else that needs a little bit of respect put on their name, Vote here, finally hitting that point on his Freya where Zapman's not too confident in his ability to box her, and so that's maybe going to shift some of this dynamic. Have to see how the supports handle this, considering Neil has, as you highlighted, been kind of the reason SSG have found the control that they've been able to. They pick up Pyromancer.
Feels there's like a bit of an issue with... It's more Vote's build options. I mean, Haste and Ring and Boost, he's looking for the mobility of this, but there's not a whole ton of damage in this build because of it at the moment. Not many, ways of shredding protections that you kind of hope for at this point. No Hokate for sustain or Titans for sustain. So he's really relying a lot on just those Magi's boots, which gives a little bit of lifesteal to stay in the fray a little bit longer. His mobility is good, but his damage output, I would say, is not at this point in time. Only 2 items picked up so far. Look at Zapman. Chins and Devourer's Gauntlets online. Now, there, just as I say it, the Demonic Grip is picked up.
That's starting a bow, so maybe keeping a little bit of pace here for Vote and getting some of that damage as you deem necessary. And that's just scary to think about. I mean, you get a full back, a full ring off of that for Vote when you're already starting to hit a little harder than most people would like you to because you're level 14 Freya at this point. I think this is going to be maybe an interesting turning point for SSG, but it's also something to highlight. You had mentioned earlier Cuvo wanted farm. He's level 14. He's got the farm now. This is where he can maybe start pivoting to match the fighting. And who else to better help match the fighting than Neil? Goes in for another pluck. They're trying to find it, but the taunt comes through from Cherry. Forces Cuvo into a bad spot. He's going to go for the retreat. Paul's in Viz right now. Seems like the Knights might want to call it. Goes for the stun even. Paul wants to go in, transforms into the Kamazots. Can't decide where they want their target and their aggression to go. Raffer takes some damage, Cherio takes some damage. But ultimately, SSG are walking away with just a couple of scars. In fact, they might even be able to collapse in on Neil.
They might be able to, and actually Cuvo forced to use his ult away too, but look at this on the left-hand side, still a fight as Vote now gets a bit of one-on-one time with Neil, with the support of Cherio in tow. Vote's going to get a kill, and also Scary's in trouble in mid.
Yeah, Lord of the Afterlife going to be able to get him a little bit away, but the snipes coming through from the ROM. Last one doesn't connect. It doesn't matter because Nika's still there and still running them down. They find themselves 2 kills for nothing so far, and the Knights forced to group up down here and lay in wait as they just want to defend. Minion waves coming up. This looks good for Space Station Gaming. The Knights are starting to fall back.
Yeah, Paul's just having a hard time getting in there to deal damage, I feel like. You saw him try to get in that engagement in mid off the pluck initially from Neil Mar, but at the end of the day, he just couldn't find the stun, and then makes a play where he felt to me like he was getting a bit overly aggressive, trying to make something happen. And this is allowing now Space Station to stay on this offensive.
They're going to be able to find a tower, at least over there in left lane. That's 3, all of the tier 1s gone. And again, map state, you go back to last game, this is where SSG were for the Knights. But it's only amounted to maybe 1,000 gold between these 2 teams. I mean, just barely a lead for SSG right now. What is it that the Knights are doing that's keeping them so close 18 minutes in?
I mean, I think a lot of it was the Gold Fury steal earlier on, right? If you take that Gold Fury out of the equation here, the gold difference is probably like 500, 600, 400, if that. And that really will make an impact. The experience, though, is a different story. It's just the fact of initial farming. I mean, Nika's got a 2-level lead there in that solo lane, and that really was developed from Cherio's support in that early game. Cherio was really stepping up this game, but I'm not surprised, you know. They ban his Earl on game 1, they leave it up game 2, and Cherio goes right back to it, and it's allowing a lot more of a window for Space Station to cause problems for PK. And honestly, I feel PK in some of these engagements are getting a bit frustrated already and not being able to find a pick as quick as they would like. And that's when Space Station are turning it apart, because the frustrations of Knights fully committing is being turned on its head.
Well, Primal Fury is going to be spawning here. Knights in a position, they look like they want this one. Not normally where we see a lot of teams kind of find a hill to die on is looking for the Primal Fury, but they're going to go for it anyway. So it will give them at least something to go off. Cherio going to get plucked back into it, but does that just put him in a better position to go in for the fight? He's going to find a taunt. Zapman was banished. Zapman taking too much damage. That horse once again paying its weight in gold to make sure he gets out of there. But it only leaves Neil to get taken down. Scary D now in the middle of it all takes too much damage. Lord of the Afterlife connects on the Cherio. It looks like they're just trying to get out of here. Snipes ringing true from Dardez, and they're just looking for the kills. The front line taken down by the Knights. Now it's just the question of whether or not you can find the rest of the kills. They don't even care about it. The carries, you can live for a little while. What are you going to do? They're going back for the Primal.
Great fight from Vote there, honestly. I think his positioning was good. The Vanish, unfortunate to avoid the pin out of Cherio that was coming down towards Zapman there. But Zapman forced to run away, and that hastened ring came into play there. He was able to chase down those targets as they looked to disengage from the fray. But the damage was already done. Space Station Gaming just clumping nicely. And I was about to say, I feel Space Station Gaming were a little bit mistaken there. 3 of them backed at the same time, and that opened a window for Knights to look to push that down. They just didn't have the burst damage from that composition to bring it down before reinforcements arrived from Space Station Gaming. Great fight from Vote, but as a whole, Space Station abused their situation well, and now they're taking a Pyro.
That's what feels like out of nowhere. I mean, we had just highlighted it saying it was just barely 1,000 gold. It's all of a sudden shot up to 4,000 gold in favor of Space Station Gaming, so they have definitely put themselves on the accelerator. Things going in their favor, and you know, you kept highlighting it. I think there was a good example of the tanks getting kind of just picked off in the right scenarios for the Knights. But maybe even more so, Paul, as you had said, struggling to get into the fight. I mean, 0-0-3, he's been a part of the 6 kills, or half of the 6 kills that the Knights have had, but I mean, they got kill number 6 what feels like ages ago, 6, 7, 8 minutes now, and they haven't really been able to pick anything big up in these last few fights.
No, and I think the big key is, you know, Dardez and Vote again, they have those ultimates to just take him out of combat. And Paul can't do anything until those ults have really been used, because if he tries to transform or sneakily get aggressive, unless the beads are down, he's not going to find as much action as he may want in those scenarios. So just keep an eye on what Paul can do, because I think this is a really hard task for him to get damage out. I think he could be an initial frontliner, an additional frontliner maybe for PK, but then you're relying a lot on this Hachiman to provide the damage, and it's going to cause problems for them. Space Station, I think, honestly, with their composition here, are running away with this game at this point. It's going to be hard for PK to get back into it.
Well, that just puts even more pressure on them to perform now, as they're grouping up not going to be able to save this tier 2 tower. One of the things we typically get to talk about if Freya exists only on a squad is that she doesn't have the same tower pushing potential as a normal hunter, but Dartez is playing Rom, so they don't really get the benefit of that there for the Knights to try and fight back. We've even seen a couple of throws happen because of a team not being able to fully finish a tower off just because of that Freya. Doesn't seem to be the case here for SSG. They're more than happy to run in, pick up the 2,000 gold, and now it seems like fall back, but they could set up for a fire giant.
Yeah, we'll see where they choose to go, because I don't think Spacestation want to start an FG without getting a pick first. They'd probably want PK to be the initiators if they can. Because honestly, when it comes to actually taking down a Phoenix or a neutral objective, Spacestation's composition here is really good for it. With Cherio going for a very auto-attack focused, damage-orientated build here that he likes to do, alongside Rama, I mean, you're not as worried about Freya on the objectives as such, but she can be there to follow up and set up engagements. I really like to see, you know, Spacestation maybe do a bit of a rope-a-dope around that objective, maybe pull it, try and lure PK in and take a fight. That's what my notion would be here, or just find a pick beforehand and he's on the way to maybe find him.
I mean, yeah, the little bit of aggression, a little bit of damage there onto Cuvo. Luckily, he's hit that point as Kamazat's where he can at least sustain a little bit and stay alive. Shrugs that damage off like it's nothing, but the Knight's not in a great position to maybe contest anything. SSG looking for the bait onto the Fire Giant. They're doing a lot of damage, Hindu. I mean, this might not even be a bait. They might just go for the kill, but instead they're going to turn the aggression onto Neil, and he is just gone. Scary D as well. Not able to take too much of this damage. Dartez up in the skies, trying to get some of the snipes down. Finds Zap with all three of them. That's going to be good damage. Cherio not able to chase it down, though. And Zap's going to be able to stay alive. The problem is nobody else on the Knights is doing so. They finally get vote, but it's a 1-for-4. Zap, you stay alive, but at what cost?
Look at what happened with Dartez in that engagement. I want to give credit to that Frenchman in mid lane again. I know he's a highlight of one of the mid lane positions, but that Rama play was great. Kamazotz goes on him and takes him down, and that's the end of it. And sure, Nika nearly died, but he got a bit of support there at the tail end from Cherio for the kill. But Dartez played that fight well. He goes to the sky, he forces Cuvo Fred to be defensive and not be able to find the target he was after. And as soon as he lands down, Cuvo was buying as much time with that bat out of hell for him landing, and immediately pops the Aegis, so it just wastes everything Cuvo Fred was trying to do in that engagement, and the damage he was putting out, too much to handle. Spacestation Gaming now should be able to get a Phoenix here, but I think they're going to play it safe, I guess. Just take down the tier 2s, base up, and buy final items.
Yeah, coming through, looks like stealing a blue buff, maybe stealing a red buff. There's a purple buff available for them if they want it as well. And that Fury spawning up Primal, so still maybe not the exact one they would want. They also have the minion advantage, like you said, maybe playing it safe. And that's where the conversation kind of pivots. They could have gone for a Phoenix Ball. There was virtually no one available on the Knights to defend. But last game we got to see SSG at least bounce one attack from the Knights away from the Phoenix. Are the Knights in a position where they could do the same, or are the SSG just going to run away with this if they get under there?
I feel like Spacestation Gaming, if they're on offense now, which they are with a Fire Giant buff, will want to do a 4-1 split. I think with Cherio at the moment and his build, he can 1v1 even the tanks at this point in time. We saw it, a little caveat towards that with Cuvo Fred in the jungle early when they took a 1v1 and Cherio won. I'm pretty sure Cherio could take a straight 1v1, so if we split him off to one side, it cause a lot of problems for Knights to try and defend both avenues at the same time. And from Knights' point of view, they need to all in commit on just one of these engagements and hope that 4-1 split can work out without Cherio in the fray. But at the moment, it does look like Spacestation is doing a different route, which is Nika in this middle lane at the moment. I would like to see that switch and send Nika with the carries, especially with the carries of Spacestation having a couple of relics on cooldown.
Well, they're just going to run in at Scary D, almost like it's nothing. They're not going to find a lot of damage onto him. But I think showcasing that they're not afraid to go in. Nika going to stay over here as this solo laner, still just now in mid, trying to pressure out the Phoenix. Cherio looking for some aggression on the left. Good pin.
Yeah.
Just trying to find a little bit of poke here on the Phoenix.
A small win, though, for Pittsburgh Knights there is Cherio uses ult on the clone of Morrigan. So he got a little bit confused there with that ult and used it. So now that's not going to be available this time round. But here's the split now, 3-2. What can they do?
Well, the minions available. Nika gonna retreat here as Paul makes the rotation over. Left Phoenix still sitting at about half health. Neil's joining the Phoenix at about half health. Phoenix is going to drop almost as fast as Neil does. Both go down in the blink of an eye. And now Zap under aggression once again. Dardes looks to want to get aggressive, but
Paul got it.
Can't leave Vote alone. Scary D. Paul able to get to the back, and now finally this Morgan look to make a difference. Raffer's low. Are they going to have enough burn to be able to get rid of him? The answer is no. Instead, Cuvo, Scary, all incredibly low. Zap, Paul forced to run back to the fountain, and they're going to make it in. They're going to get some of the healing. The question is if they can continue bouncing this back. Raffer really low. Scary ready to go in, but no ults available on board for either squad. Dardes finally been eliminated. Zapman going to have to heal back up. Cubo goes down. A very disconnected and disjointed fight. Seems like SSG are forced to run away from the base, but can they do so cleanly? Paul's still looking for more kills. It's not going to work out for him, though. The sustain too good. The damage just better. Cherio is just playing the jungle a little bit stronger this game. Scary D trying to do whatever he can, but it's not going to matter. A pentakill for Cherio, and now he's looking for another pentakill to close the game out. The Erlang Shin just does it to him.
Fantastic play from Spacestation Gaming at the tail end of that engagement there. I was watching that fight and I'm like, I don't know, Spacestation got a little bit too aggressive at the fountain, but then the Fire Giant buff resustain came through. The frontline tankiness of this composition was too much for PK to handle, and a pentakill for the auto attack focus Erlang Shen. No surprises why we saw that get banned away from him. I doubt he gets it in game 3.
I mean, at that point, you're just watching this guy who has continually, looked for these ganks all game. You had called it very early on, and Cherio didn't disappoint. I feel like after winning most of that, it was just a cherry on top, but you still got to feel really good being able to go from a game 1 loss to a pentakill in game 2.
Yeah, I mean, it always feels good. These guys won't really think about the pentakills too much. I mean, they're like the slash line, so to speak. More importantly for them would be the win based off how that first game went into the second game. It's now back on PK to adjust now, because what SSG is saying to them is, okay, we're going to put up a really big, strong front line, and you guys have to get through that first to get to our carries, and if you don't, we're going to take the win.
Well, game 2 was a doozy. Game 3, I expect to be just as much. Finch and Aggro will talk about it, but at the other end of this break.
Well, Cheerio puts an exclamation point on that dub for Space Station Gaming, a pentakill to seal it from the Erlong Shen pilot. And Cheerio saying maybe should have me as #1 sim for soccer, who, as they still have one more to win here in this SSG up against PK set. Aggro, this one, coming into it, I don't know, I was kind of on the fence about it. I mean, I knew SSG had the chance to get that win, but I wasn't so sure about that Freya in the long lane, the raw mid, but boy, did they make all of it work.
They really did, and really credit to SSG because they did not get off to a good start in this game. Really, Neil and Zap were having a great start in duo. I thought Neil was really controlling the pace of this game beautifully on this Sobek. But then Cherry and Nika just started to snowball on that right side of the map, and it's exactly as I said after game 1. Where Fred and Scary go, so go PK. And in this game, they got a little bit more bullied, they fell a little bit more behind, and Cherry and Nika were able to control every team fight from there on out.
And at the very beginning of the game, Hindu said, I'm worried about this Morrigan pick, and I wasn't so sure. I thought that the Camazods and Ama were good targets for her, but where this Morrigan really struggled for me, Aggro, was in the base Morrigan form, just struggling to find opportunities to get into the fight, struggling to find opportunities to get off that damage before the transformations, and towards the end, a lot of them were the Camazods running away or trying to disengage. Felt like Knights kind of struggled towards the end of that game, figuring out how they wanted to start their fights. It was either Neil Ma or Bust, it felt like at a lot of those times, and Bust started to come up towards the end of the game way more than anything else.
It's just so hard to initiate on one single person that whenever you pluck someone, you've got an Erlong and a Kuzenbo and an Ama who are ready to get into the back line alongside whoever gets plucked to really set it up. This was a back-breaking kill on the Cubo that really just should not have happened. Cubo needed to know that Cherry was there. That was right after a kill. And then, of course, the pentakill at the very end. I think it might have been Jermaine on Twitter saying that it was really a hexakill because Cherry got the Morrigan decoy there as well with the pin. So Cherry got them all in this one.
That's right, and doing it without everything used as efficiently as possible. Absolutely nuts that Cherry was able to get this pick. And you know, I feel like people still don't give Cherry the respect that he deserves, and it's easy for that to happen because of how insanely good Nika is, and how insanely good Dardez is, and how insanely good Vote and Raffer are. And I feel like maybe because of Cherry's style, he doesn't get all the attention that he deserves, but this guy is a critical piece of this SSG team, man. He is up there at the very top of the best that we have. He put it on display here, and then Nika. You thought my man was going to have 2 bad Amaterasu games in a row? Oh, no, absolutely no way. My man bounced back this time.
Yeah, that's not how this happens. We win on Ama around here, man. That's kind of just the way you got to expect it to go when you're going up against SSG. I just think that this SSG team is so well-rounded. They got that right side of the map working this time. I still think that they need to be concerned about what's going on the duo side. You cannot expect to give up as much pressure as they did every single game and still guarantee a win. But that's what this team does. I mean, they're willing to go down a little bit of gold because they know their team fighting is just some of the best in the entire league. They've been doing it all year, having a little bit of slower starts and then turning it around and hitting the gas whenever it's appropriate.
That's exactly right. SSG force us into a game number 3. Let's get to those picks and bans and see exactly what Cherio's going to be playing. That's aside from the Erlong Shen. No way he's going to be playing the Erlong Shen. I just cannot imagine a world where that's how that's going to happen. So let's find out what other thing Cherio will play this game. And will there still be this many bans to the mid lane God pool? Because remember, SSG pulled kind of the okie doke with the early Rom pick and then later on getting the Freya and putting Rom mid for Dardez. So I don't know if it's quite as valuable to spend all of those bans trying to limit the mid lane.
I think that if we see the Hebo ban coming from SSG, which I expect we will, then it is still fairly viable to ban out a lot of those mages because Hebo's been the traditional magical character that Cherry's been going to when he goes to a magical jungler so that Dardez can play a hunter in mid. Now that doesn't mean that Cherry can't pull out one of his famous guardians, you know, the Athena, the Kabrakan, a whole bunch of different picks that he could play in the jungle. But I think I'm still banning Afro Hera if I'm PK in this spot. And if I'm SSG, then I'm totally down to go with the same 3 mage bans of Persephone, Hebo, and Hell. The problem is when you're in second pick in SSG shoes, remember they gave up that Yamoja last time around, and Neil looked very good on that pick with that first pick slot. So maybe SSG will change it up and decide to ban the Yemoja, leave open the Hell this time.
It's the Hera, the Afro, and the Erlong. These are pretty standard bans, especially the Afro Hera up against Dardes. We knew this Erlong Shin ban was coming. No chance that PK were going to run that one back. And it is the Yemoja ban here this time for SSG. So the ban away Yemoja, Hebo, and the Persephone, and leave that Hell open. I really doubt PK are going to top pick that here, which means that PK are going to have to go somewhere else. Maybe they want to take away the Amma or grab a Rom Cupid or something like that.
I think it's going to be Rom if they decide to take a Hunter in this spot, but I was thinking Amma. Yeah, exactly what PK is hovering. You've given this over to Nika. Basically, every team's given this over to Nika as of late. What is his next pick in the solo lane? We don't know. I assume he's been practicing it a whole lot, because why would he have to run the Amaterasu in scrims when he's getting it every single SPL game? He's getting plenty of practice on that selection. I think this is good from PK. They clearly do not value getting Zap, Rom, or Cupid every single game like a lot of teams do for their Hunters. If you're not that worried about getting your priority among those two, I think this pick makes sense.
It's a little disappointing, though, because the Heimdall game was not particularly impressive, and the Hachiman was pretty good at running away, and that was kind of about it. So I don't know, man. I understand that this is a team that feels as though they can wait for Zap because he has a slightly weirder picks not everyone else is playing. I don't know how weird Heim and Freya are, but he's willing to go to those more than everyone else. But I do feel as though maybe they're putting him in a bit of a tough spot over there in that long lane, insofar as asking him to constantly deal with being kind of on the back foot. So it's SSG taking the Sobek and the Rom right away. PK had Neil on this pick last game, so they're going to need a new support for him. And it looks like they go to it right away, picking up this Kuzenbo, shoring up their front line with their top 2 picks.
Pretty notable to me that PK clearly, despite, making sure that Paul gets his God and all that kind of stuff, they are top 3ing Neil's God every single game. And that's noteworthy, that they really feel like getting Neil on one of his comfort picks is a priority for them, and for good reason. I think Neil has been fantastic in the last 2. Now you get him on Kuzenbo, a God that he's pretty comfortable on. I've been making sure that he can get that before the next ban phase. I like. No surprise at all to see Paul take the Hell in this exact same slot that he took it in game number 1, and it remains the same. You feel comfortable letting Zap get his God bottom 2, and you feel comfortable enough letting Fred take his God bottom 2. That's been the formula for this PK team in every single game of this set.
I wonder if they're still going to go with that Camazotz, though, for Fred. I mean, there's still a good chance that SSG ban it for 1, but also I feel like this might be a draft where they wouldn't mind having a little bit more control out of their jungler, and there you go, SSG banned it anyway, so kind of a moot point with Camazotz being 1 note in terms of his damage. So it's the Robin coming in for Cheerio. He loves to take this pick to get aggressive in the early game, and now they have this Rom, which could flex to mid anyway. Maybe PK don't feel so comfortable banning all these mages. I think SSG have done a great job with these top 3 picks, and maybe trying to limit what Cuvo Fred could potentially play as well.
I wonder if PK is going to ban Freya in this spot, because then that kind of opens takes away the most important magical ADC that Vote could be playing. Olarun is kind of fallen off the face of the planet in terms of prioritization in the SPL, not just across these 2 teams, but across every single team in the SPL. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them go with that. They decide to ban the Morrigan, more focusing towards the mid lane. PK seems pretty okay with Dardes reprising that Rom mid if that's what SSG decides to do.
6 mage bans here at this point, plus the Hell already picked, so 7 total to have been stripped away. Looks like when Nika cannot play the Amaterasu, though, he'll drop down to that Sun Wukong over in solo. Now they have the Wukong, the Robin, and the Sobek. So if their ideas try and get to that backline, they've got some decent tools to do it, and Rom can follow up with those snipes from range. Just a question of if they can get through all this healing from the Hell while they're trying to do it. Remember last time when Paul had this Hell mid, SSG were really concerned with making sure they had the anti-heal, they had the Chang'e, they had the Bacchus, but it doesn't seem as if they're that concerned with having the anti-heal in the kit, though they do have the Sobek this time.
Yeah, without the Chang'e, I can't imagine that they're going to pick something else that has that innate anti-heal built in their draft, but I'm sure they'll be prioritizing the brawlers. Beat 6, I wouldn't be surprised to see Nika get one late in the build. We've seen Wukong's kind of go two hybrid items like Void Shield and Sledge, and then all damage past that, and somehow manage to get away with it. Well, that's been Benji style at the very least. We'll see if Nika wants to kind of copy that as exactly what we expected coming out of PK. Hunbat's Heimdall, 2 picks that both Fred and Zap have defaulted to quite a bit this year.
gives them some control out of the jungle with that Fear No Evil, such a powerful teamfight ultimate, and then Zap's been playing just a ton of this Heimdall lately, to the point where they're not even looking at the Cupid, and looks like SSG are considering this Freya one more time, where they give this ROM over to Dardes. That is going to be the call, so they did have to make some adjustments, right? The Wukong for Nika instead of the Amaterasu, the Robin for Cheerio instead of the Erlong Shen, and no Kuzenbo for Raffer, but they do still have the Freya ROM core of this team. Do you think they have better stuff flanking it this time, or could they be running into some trouble here?
Well, based on what Cheerio did in Game 1 on the Robin versus penta-killing PK Game 2 on the Erlong Shen, I would say I would favor PK's draft and their adjustments that they've made. For me, it's really going to come down to the junglers. Cuvo was dominant Game 1. Fred really popped off Game 2. Which jungler is going to be the more consistent one in this set and bring a good Game 3 performance is going to be pretty critical. PK has continued to get pressure on that left-hand side. I don't see that changing with these picks. I think we're still going to see them try and bully out the duo side. How well can Scary handle this Wukong Robin pressure is going to be really, really key for Pittsburgh Knights.
It is. The Amaterasu finally ended up back in Scary's hands and forcing Nico into something else. To hell for Paul. Back to this raw mid over there for Dardes as well. A lot of interesting storylines culminating here in this all-exciting game number 3.
That's right, Finch. One game to determine it all between these two teams. History would have it that it's supposed to be SSG getting the win, but you never know what this Knights squad is going to bring up. Hindu, you know, we roll it back to game number 1. Cherio's back on this Robin, Paul's back on this Hell. There might not be the same amount of sustain and not the same amount of counter sustain. I guess anti-heal is the better way to describe that. But it still feels like a lot of those themes we hit in game 1 are going to be applicable here.
Agreed. And funny enough, like, I'm looking at the picks and bans in the drafting phase, and that's one of my favorite things, honestly, when you get a good series between two teams, is the adaptations. And I'm looking at Cuvo Fred on this Hun Bats this game. For me, I wouldn't mind seeing the Nemesis potentially this game. Good against some of these frontliners that Spacestation Gaming are running with, this 3-tank sort of situation. I think a Nemesis could have helped them, but it would have been very single target focused. And I think one of the reasons we see this Hun Bats this game, honestly here, Gore, is because they want to spread that front line out sometimes. If they all dive in, the Fear No Evil can kind of split them apart a little bit, maybe force them to overextend a little bit more, keep them a bit more honest. It's going to be a big game for Cuvo Fred, I would say, based off this draft.
Something that we have to see. And, you know, a lot of the discussion the last 2 games has been all around this duo lane. Typically, it was one team just has better pressure than the other. I think when Freya's on one side, you kind of have to give her the, I guess, the opposite of the benefit of the doubt. Like, she's the one who's going to get pushed out here, even with the Sobek next to her. So maybe an open opportunity for Cuvo Fred to come over here and cause some trouble for both.
Yeah, and Neil's going to do exactly what he needs to, which is stand on the front line and eat some of those pull shots where possible. Try and reduce the amount of clear votes going to have and keep this pressure up in the lane. Now, the problem with that, though, is just keeping an eye on Cheerio, right? From PK's point of view, where is Cheerio at every given moment? Because if you're going to be that far up in the lane, you need to make sure you're not going to get rotated on. And this is a window now, right now. You saw the ping immediately there from PK to let them know what's going on. But Scary's in trouble.
Yeah, incredibly low here on the Amaterasu. Nika waiting for the cooldowns, not quite going to be able to get it. And as per Agro's rant yesterday, thinks that Wukong does a lot of damage. Honestly, I think this might be a case for that being true, as Scary T has to continue playing careful over there in solo lane.
Yeah, I'm always interested in what Nika's maxing, actually, what the Sun Wukong's maxing lane these days, because Jingu Bang, obviously, decent damage and better against minions too. But the Master's Will, that second ability, it does scale pretty effectively as well and have good base stats to it. And you can see the Master's Will being used now and again. It does look, I would say, Jingu Bang for the most part there, based off that little Master's Will spin we saw. But yeah, this matchup, definitely interested to see Nika take it to this Amma early, and it's not with an Osiris.
And you also have to think about, it's a very small buff, but the buff he received just a few weeks ago, I guess at this point maybe longer than that, time blends together. Just that Tiger Stun, you know, being applicable for its full duration at level 1, maybe being beneficial to everyone involved. And specifically, I guess here, it would be for Nika more than anybody, as the game takes a little bit of a pause that comes through. I mean, this is just a good spot, it feels like, for SSG.
Yeah, a bit of a pause there between two. Sorry about the weirdness there. I'm having camera issues still, so I freeze every now and again. So I hit refresh at the same time as that pause came through. So just taking a second between these two. And as you were saying though, I mean that situation with Sun Wukong there, I think the bigger change that happened with Sun Wukong, honestly, Gore, was his passive adjustments. Coming online a little bit more often, lasting a little bit longer now, and that allows you, when you get at those low health thresholds in those engagements, to put out arguably more damage than you expect. So you've got to be respectful of that. I think that's what you're seeing in that laning phase there, is Scary being very respectful of the Sun Wukong damage in those moments, and having to play a little bit more defense than you may have seen.
Now, this is going to be a little tangential, but I noticed we both have blue backgrounds, and both times so far in this game, the Order side has won. Not the red team, but the blue squad. And I'm just saying, for anybody who wants to put on a tinfoil hat out there, at least there's some sort of conspiracy to latch onto to maybe spice up some of this early game. I mean, so far in all 3 games, these first, 3, 5, 8 minutes up to the 10-minute mark, these teams kind of test the waters with each other, and then the floodgates open and kills just start coming through. Although it looks like they might go for that a little bit faster. Is that man going to get banished out of the Bifrost? Still
Bifrost,
able
though.
to make it through that crystal. Luckily, it's just close enough that the cooldown will work.
And the big thing there with that Bifrost, right, and this composition of Spacestation having the dual lane, Sobek and Freya can cancel out for quite a long period of time that Bifrost transition. So if you get the, you get the tail whip off, that's going to cause him to be dissuaded from using the Bifrost, and then the banish too. I think we'll see a little bit more of that as this game goes on. Zap's going to have to be very, very careful around this CC chain. But look at Cuvo here. He's on the left, and he is level 5.
Haven't seen any pings come out for him anytime lately. He's going to blink forward, fear no evil, lock him down. Vote seems to be the goal, and they're going to be able to do it. No, they need one more hit. They haven't got it yet. The jump secures that one for Cuvo Fred. Raffer has no mana, but it doesn't seem like the Knights are looking for anything more. They get their first blood, and they get on out of there.
Great situation for PK too. Take into account they were winning this lane anyway, the dual lane with pressure, and then that one gank came through, and now he's going to continue to push that even further. Vote force back to base early, doesn't have full boots online. That's going to mess with his transition of itemization a little bit on where he chooses to back, so his power spikes won't be at the same mark as that of Zapman when he looks to go back to base, more than likely for full boots, but he could just hold on for those Devourers potentially in this matchup. PK winning the dual lane, and Cuvo Fred making an impact.
Now they're just trying to figure out whether or not they can continue to get aggressive. That man wants to as he comes up. I mean, the most aggressive positioning I think you could have out of a carry at that point. Not a lot of peel for him either, but he seems to be pretty confident in this lane right now. And this Heimdall has treated them pretty well on the side of the Knights in that dual lane. Especially you get a good early gank that you had called for on Cuvo. As long as he goes unseen by SSG, just keep your eyes on that diamond. He will be making more plays.
And I think as the game goes on as well, don't expect Cubo to necessarily be diving the backline with those Fear No Evils. Expect those Fear No Evils to maybe be put towards the middle of the front of those team fights, to maybe force Raven to be too far forward, to force Nika to not be able to get his ultimate off maybe in those engagements due to the CC chain and the burst that PK can have. I really do feel a lot of this is going to come down to the Hun Bats for most of the time, but how well Spacestation dance around that Hun Bats and wait for those windows to re-engage and go for the kill. Pulse sustain as well, obviously something to keep an eye on, so watch out for anti-heal opportunities in terms of items for Spacestation game.
And, actually, looking at Paul, we didn't really get to talk about it much last game, but, Darda's running this ROM in mid lane, at least in terms of keeping up with Hell, for farm, it's going to be a little difficult. She clears pretty well. Is this something for him that, unless Cherio happens to be looking for a fight, he seemed to just want to coast in this lane. Doesn't want anything to do with any fights. He just wants to farm up, get to that late game, essentially just play like a hunter, but in mid lane.
Yeah, and for the most part, what Dardas is going to do is just rely on Rama's great positioning, that rollout that he's got available. I mean, it's multi-directional, so as long as you can keep good ward vision down, which if you look at the map from Space Station at mid now, there's a ward on the left and a ward on the right near those Harpies. So they've got full vision of Hun Bats rotating around those areas, and as long as they can keep Dardas safe there, it's hard to find a kill on that Rama, in my opinion, because rollout will get him away from some of the distance that Paul can put out with those abilities, and secondly, he'll still have time with the ultimate to cause problems there too.
Well, Raffer right now looking to get locked down, sent through
the
the
tower.
realms here by Zapman. He's going to land right in the tower.
Oh,
Good
the
body blocks to make sure that the tower shots are going to ring true, but he needs one more hit to do it. Zapman, you got to find that one. It's going to be the push from Neil, comboed
no
with the
vote.
sword. But Cherio, no, Paul, I should say, is the one who's making the gank over here. They find the damage. Ult from Vote looking to try and get Zapman down, but it's not going to be enough damage. They find that there. They thwart the damage and the zone from Nika. It seems like the Knights are happy with their 3-0 lead.
PK doing really well in this early game so far, and even defending this right-hand side and not losing a life so far. I think that was a bigger key there, is because whenever you see a gank from a jungler, you're like, what's the other jungler doing right now? Where is he? He was ganking that right-hand side, but didn't find anything fruitful. So PK now finding a really commanding opportunity in this game. I mean, I'm sure it's not a whole lot of gold, it's not a whole lot of experience, but man, is the momentum with this PK side right now.
I don't know if I like the sound of momentum being on the side of the hell as well. Not only do you have all the healing, you get all the CC from a Hunbats, but you're also getting the momentum, the gold lead at this point. Again, pretty small, but 1,000 gold at 7 minutes is solid for the Knights. That gives them the opportunity, I mean, at least teamfight-wise, to look for things like a Gold Fury, maybe a little bit faster than SSG would be comfortable to fight around.
And funny enough, I mean, that was an individual 2v2 play by PK in the lane, but you mentioned it a little bit there, God, too, about Hal's clearing that mid lane being a bit quicker than this Rama, and his rotation to dual lane was just so quick that that's what opened up the opportunity for more damage and more opportunities there. Meanwhile, as I'm watching this now, you can see Cherio is still trying to hard commit and hard hold to the right-hand side. This is giving me the idea that Spacestation are surrendering to an extent what's happened on the dual lane and not looking to fight. They're going to try and just hold off and allow Vote to farm up where possible. He's already a level down, but if you're going to stick to the right-hand side here, Gore, these opportunities are going to present themselves.
I thought it was going to happen early, Hindu, but I didn't think this early. I thought they were going to give me more than a 30-second window after I mentioned Gold Fury, as is the norm. 8 minutes. I feel like that's one of the earlier Gold Furies we've gotten to see all phase, maybe all year, really. A lot of these teams haven't found opportunities like that. No evil used defensively here, but at this point, you're more than happy to expend an ult like that because you're just so solidly in the lead now if you're the Knights.
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird situation there that Cuvo caught himself in, if I'm honest. He's got no beads because he went for Blink at the start of the game. So if he gets hit by a Sobek Plucker and all in from Cherio, he's going to be in a rough situation. So a forced error from Spacestation Gaming there as Cuvo has to use that ult defensively. And now, an invade attempt on the right.
Not going too well for Cherio. The attempt was there, and it looks like he might walk out with his life.
No.
But he did have to use that Mystic Rush to get out of there. Scary D, Neilmon not able to close the gap, although they're still looking for Flood. Whether they can find Raffer is going to be a different question. Lurking in the water, CC immunity gets him on out of there. No ults are going to be big and readily available for a team fight here for the Knights. And it looks like they're going to recognize that, fall back. They thwart the attempt, but they don't get the kill.
Yeah, small window there on that right-hand side, I feel. I don't think Rafa really realized that Fear No Evil was on cooldown, even though we saw it in mid, because he used to look in the waters a little bit worried about getting isolated there. It bought him enough time, though, to escape the danger for now. But 10 minutes in, I mean, this is a comfortable position as a PK fan. They're coming off the back of a 4-win streak, going into the #1 seed in the league right now. And this is anyone's game. You'd favour Spacestation with their performances through the year, but PK have the advantage here. This could be an upset if they keep this pace going.
And we were talking about it a little bit yesterday, but I think it's another time to mention the peaking at the right moment, right? It's always something that when you ask the teams, that's all they say. Especially, like, I feel like it comes more from the bottom teams around Worlds, but it always is that discussion of being first seed going into Worlds sometimes isn't really what you want. You want to be something like the Knights are doing now, where they're on the rise. And, I mean, even pushing SSG to 3 games, that's monumental for them.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, being the #1 seed, the hardest problem is the only way is down. You can't get any higher than #1. And everyone's trying to chase you all year long. Honestly, Spacestation Ghost have done a great job of holding onto their grasp of the top 2 at the start of the league. But the rest of the league is coming up fast now. So many changes to rosters, so many changes to playstyles, and argumentatively, honestly, like the meta in general, the picks and bans, has really had a positive knock on the lower end of the league. That now the top end is starting to struggle here or there.
Well, now the question is whether or not the Knights can get this Pyromancer they want, or if it's going to be a fight that breaks out for them. They have the sustain, but it seems like they're not going to go and get aggressive here. Instead, Vote getting a little bit aggressive. That man has that vision. Scary D's the one that's locked down. It's just a fight anywhere and everywhere on the map. Unfortunately, the only one that really does get to come to fruition for the Knights is the one where they lose their solo laner, and he doesn't get a lot of pressure. Now Raffer going all in on Paul might not be the call. It looks like they're going to be able to lock him down, at least in terms of damage. But no one's going to get interrupted. Neil won't be able to get the full push. Doesn't matter because they send him everywhere. Ult used by Zapman. The damage is going to be good. Bifrost gets him out of there, but Cheerio is not going to be able to find anything. Paul with the saving grace. It's only going to keep Neil alive a little bit longer, but they're still picking up kills.
Yeah, that was Rapid getting greedy, but Bidder even at mid lane from Cubo takes out Nika. Donna's left alone, and the sustain from Paul too much to handle. He's low on mana though, is Paul, so this aggression won't pay off, and now they've overextended.
Have votes coming around. Here's Freya, has that hasten ring, but no other damage, and you had highlighted last game, it's maybe not going to make him this scariest, and maybe not the one who wants to commit the most to a fight here. SSG pull 2 back in that fight, but they kill Neil, and they kill Scary. It kind of feels like at the end of the day, the Knights still get to be happy, especially when I realize that Paul's now 3-0-1.
Yeah, and honestly, that whole fight starts with Rafa getting a little bit too gung-ho towards Paul there, chasing him through the jungle, and walks into Zapman, who's there too, and that ends up costing him his life. I've got to say, Neil, though, on the escape route from Rafa, just catches him nicely, uses his ultimate well. As PK, I don't know what happened to that objective. It looks like it was a 2v1, so no wonder PK come away with that pyro.
I mean, not only being able to pick that up, gold lead starting to get a little out of hand here. 3,000 gold, again, something that's pretty easy to come back from. We've seen teams lower still win the game, but still a good, comfortable lead for a team like the Knights. It's also going to translate into some of those items. Specifically, I was looking at it because Paul's been having some mana issues, but now that should disappear thanks to that breastplate.
Yeah, that breastplate will definitely help him out a lot. I mean, Paul's one of the mid laners that likes to go for a bit of defense in his build anyway. Look at the composition they're against. I mean, he is going to get hit by Dardes, confirmed. He's going to get hit by Cheerio and Nika. So a bit of protection keeps you topped up. Mana regen important too. But most importantly, 20% CDR puts him at 40% now with the Mage's Blessing and those Shoes of Focus too, where his cap will be. And being able to, you know, have the abilities up more often, get a bit more regen, is going to put Paul in good stead. And when you look at anti-heal here too at the moment, Gore, they're really just relying on that Sobek and Cheerio, which are going to be the prime focus on trying to get to Paul on this back line.
So far it's been difficult. Now, like you said, he has that breastplate. And it's because you have Cuvo who can throw down a Fear No Evil to save you. Also, not to throw him under the bus, but both only did 10k damage last game, which maybe makes it a little easier to ignore the Freya. Wanted a Primal Fury, but they don't seem too confident in their ability. They want to bait a fight out. I'm actually surprised the Knights didn't stick to it. Instead, they back up, get that red buff. They might circle back in, though.
That felt like a check from PK to see what Space Station were going to do, right? Start the Fury and just see what the response time of Space Station was going to be, because I don't think they can take us straight on 5-on-5. There's a lot of steal potential, I would say, from Space Station this game. Jingu Bang causes problems, and 3 ultimates that take you out of combat, take that into account, that could all influence this Fury. But PK started it up again. Looks like they want to fight.
That's already half health. They're going to go ahead and drop that one. Again, it feels like you said they want to fight. They want something to happen. But they're going to make SSG make the first move. Otherwise, they'll just try to take this. Healing still going to be coming through. There's going to be the push onto Nika. It's not going to be enough to not only get a lot of damage onto him, but not even find the kill here. They're just poking and leaving.
Look at mid lane though. Look at what Cheerio does. He sees a window and he pressures mid lane so he can wrap around. He forces someone back, and this opens up a window for SSG to get in.
And they're going to be able to peel a little bit. Paul goes down first, and that's the exact target you want. Dardes finds 2. Zapman's low, so that's going to be 3 for the mid laner here on SSG. They're going to keep chasing him down, but Cubo's scary. It's not even worth it. Go back, get yourselves a Primal, and just be happy you found the kills.
But the chase is still on, potentially. Actually, tell a lie, there's only 2 members left for PK to do anything. That was created by Cheerio, and the kills were created by Cheerio on this Raven. Mid lane, he just realizes we're staring at each other. They're not going to do it entirely. They're trying to make us pull the trigger. So Cheerio pressures the mid wave, forces someone to defend that whole minion wave going into tower. And as soon as Humbats turns up, Cheerio goes, okay, well, I'm going to wrap around the back now and pincer, and it pays off for Space Station Gaming. Great play from them.
And it takes that gold lead that has just been mounting so much for the Knights and kind of just cuts it maybe a little bit more than in half there as it gets to under 1,000. So finally, back into the realm of anybody's game when it comes down to it. Towers all still standing, and it's been these fights around the objectives that might make the bigger difference. And I think most notably, Hindu, the important kill. Paul in game 1 was nowhere near the first one to die in any of the fights. Here, they pick him up first, and that healing just disappears.
Yeah, I mean, he's gone for the Shell this game, which is an interesting choice because Shell's really good in that mid lane, right? But there's a little bit of a damage spike, I would say, that Spacestation have with this composition. If he gets hit by that Raven ultimate, it's going to do a ton of damage. And that's my biggest concern. I think if he could have an Aegis there to prevent some of that, he would survive a little bit longer. But I do get the thought process of the Shell. Just going to watch those avenues, those angles, though. Spacestation just played the pincer maneuver so well in that last engagement. And PK now will not be happy about doing the same thing again. They won't sit back and try and force Spacestation to take a fight because Spacestation just played the time well and waited for the correct opportunity to engage. And with that, with the Gold Fury now being down, no one's going to be happy about an FG call at this time. We're going to go back to farming for a while, I'd say. So just keep an eye on who steps out too far forward and do we see a jungle rotation.
It's been interesting to see, specifically, I think, Cubo, kind of a big part early on, and so far a little quiet since then. And you had highlighted it in the last fight, but him and Cherio were both kind of locked in mid. Cherio just made a better rotation out of it that ended up paying off more for the team. No fear, no evil, no big, game, I would say maybe just team fight changing ultimate. Causes some trouble. Now the question is if they'll use it here. Terio's going to use the Mystic Rush to try and go in. Snipes from Dardes even going to be coming out. Maybe an early call on that one. They're looking for the aggression on SSG, but it might have been too soon. Cherio going to be able to immune through that ultimate from Cubo, but not long enough, but they trade out Neil for the process. Jungle for support still feels pretty good, but the Knights, they might be fishing for more.
They can't fight Dardes, man. He's swinging to high heaven right now on this Rama too. But Boat's frontlining too long, doesn't have an ultimate. Yes, he does. He gets the sky in time, as now the damage rates down. It's not enough to get a kill just yet. A Scary D arrives on the scene.
And it's just right into the awaiting arms. Paul, though, goes in, gets a kill, dies for it. Dardes still dealing all that damage you had just highlighted. Question is if he can keep it going for him. There's some kills. He's maybe looking for another triple if he can get on in here. That ult used too soon, so he's not going to have the snipes.
Oh, the monkey does.
Want to go in. Zapman has the vision. The damage is going to be there. The distance is a little bit better for SSG.
Crazy fight between the two. That was Spacestation Gaming getting aggressive, looking at Paul. Dardes' confidence, by the way, to use that ultimate and go for the kill, backing him up. But look at Nico, too far forward. He's taking more than he bargained for. Dardes turns up now and will help pick up the kill on Scary, but Zap answers it back.
And gets the shutdown. 6-1 for Dardes. Get him out of here. It's what you need as the Knights. Been finding a lot of kills. You'd highlighted he's a lot of the damage. When you look at his build, he's so far ahead getting all that farm in mid. And now it feels like he's becoming one of the bigger issues that you have to deal with if you're the Knights.
There's only one thing I've got to say about that little skirmish you saw on the left, though. Why, though? Like, why did we take that fight? Like, there was nothing for anyone to do. And in the end, what it actually cost Spacestation there was Dardes, which, as you were saying, he was 6-0 at that point when he rolled in for that kill. And he lost his life, gave the shutdown bonus towards Zapman to escalate his build a little bit more. It didn't make sense to me. Spacestation playing a little bit aggressive there. It was uncalled for. I don't think they really needed to go for a kill in that moment. But at the end of the day, a lot of people always forget in SMITE that kills don't win your games. Objectives do. With objectives being on cooldown, I guess you can throw away a life? Question mark. Very strange to me.
That's always going to be, I think, a little questionable, but I guess as long as you come out a little ahead, you're okay with it. Like you said, there's a big question mark at the very end of it. We'll honestly come back out of it with 400 gold, not even separating these two teams. It goes wave to wave. And with that Oni Fury coming up, that might be more important than ever because it's the next big objective. Dardes, all ults available for SSG, all ults available for Knights. It's the positioning, I think, around this next Fury that will then start to dictate the next 5 minutes. It could easily snowball.
Oh, definitely, and I think this Oni Fury is very important here, Gormaz, because 2 towers on PK are down left and right, and that middle one is wilted away. Spacestation Gaming realized that this is a valuable one for them to get to keep, not necessarily momentum, but keep the power on and keep the pressure going. But from PK's point of view, if they can get that Oni Fury, it could even the map up for themselves and give themselves a bit more confidence with how the last couple of fights have gone.
And that just goes to show how good ward coverage can be. Normally you hear a Pyromancer getting taken down and everyone on the other team would collapse in on that Fury, but the Knights knew SSG just wasn't in a position to do so. Back to base, good timing on them because they get the one objective. Now they've rotated over here to at least set up for the other.
It'll be
Started
fast.
Up by SSG.
It'll be fast.
Question of whether or not they can get there in time. The answer is no. That was, like you said, fast. Just almost in the blink of an eye, taken away. I expected more out of that, but it just comes into SSG walk in and take it.
That was just being late to the party from PK's point of view, but when I say it's fast, this is 2 games in a row. It's Freya armor and a jungler that has good damage output is the big key. So they are shredding through these objectives relatively quickly. And Ram is building mid lane, like he's swinging. He's all auto-attack focused this game. Atlantas, Chins, Odysseus bow too. Like he's there all for those basics, and Dardes is one of the best positioners in my eyes in the league, and it's one of the strengths that he's going to bring to this. I think when I look across the way though at PK, we really are looking at Cuvo Fred, who's having a good solid game so far, but I need more out of Zapman now, I feel. He's doing okay, but I do expect that Zap has to get in the action a little bit more. I think that's where the window of opportunity is going to come from, because the other rest of the members, their front line's weak, I would say. Fear No Evil, a big key again to success for PK.
Well, he has to be available to be able to join the fights. You had already highlighted how weak that tower in mid was. It's gone now. The Oni minions doing exactly what they need to, and causing a big grouping from SSG over here on left. Zap, you want him to go big. This is a good chance for them to go in. Heal blinks forward. They're not going to be able to find any pushes. And it seems like SSG are going to go ahead and recognize that they don't quite have what they need, and they're going to back off.
Yeah, that was a late to the party again call from PK. Just too many members not at that tier 2 tower to defend, when clearly PK want to hold on to him. Neil's blink there, more than anything, is a deterrent of like, hey, I'll eat these shots so the tower doesn't, and hope you back away. And Spacestation did just that. So still, Spacestation now in the lead for one of the first times this game, I feel, even though the kills are a different story. We really are in sort of an isolated moment now, as this is back to an even point where I'm starting to lean towards Spacestation's composition here, Gore, because their carries are getting the items they need. Mainly, you're looking at Vote more than anything else. He's still a little bit behind in itemization, so we'll see what he can do when he gets to that fifth item, I should say, before even his 6th by selling that Hunter's Blessing.
That's going to be the next big power jump, right, for SSG as they move forward. Only objective that's still standing on the map for these teams to really fight over is that Fire Giant. And it's still, as weird as it is, we're 24 minutes in, it doesn't really feel like an objective that's going to be easily done, even if you're able to get a couple of picks here. And the Knights are going to be the ones who have at least the vision advantage right now over on right, but I mean, where does this all start to pop off? So far, you know, Neil, Cuvo, Zapman, you had highlighted a couple of people that we wanted to see go big. They haven't really gotten to be in these fights as much.
No, not really, and that's mainly been the pressure in the dual lane more often than not that started this game off. I mean, no one's really pulling away with this game. I feel like Spacestation have a lead so far with how these fights have gone, and the objective count too, but I don't think it's just theirs alone. And PK Sustain is there with that Hell still. It's still up in the air, and I couldn't call it right now. This is a really good, like, precursor almost. PK are playing better than they've played all year, in my mind, with how their games have gone, taking games from the top 4, and now looking to start this FG off.
It's going to be sitting a little over half HP as of now. Rapper goes in, but luckily is going to have the saving grace, gets out of the dash. Scary D trying to separate the squad. Good banish, though, from Vote. Gets both frontliners for the Knights taken out of the fight. Now Neil, he's too low to continue going. He's forced to retreat. Scared the Cheerio recognizes that is the time to go in. Fear No Evil comes in, locks him down with the damage, and helps get the kill. Now it's just the question of whether or not they can continue that pathing up. Seems like the Knights say no. They have the numbers advantage, but they fall back.
Yeah, but I think Knights fall back to sustain back up again and run the Space Station boys down. A great play from PK there. Over-aggressive from Space Station, and we saw it. The Fear No Evil separated Cherio and pushed him too far forward, and that Fear No Evil was enough to set this fight off.
Oh, it's going to be under half health here for the Fire Giant. Also for Raffer, who's looking to get chased down. Good teleport from Cubo, finds exactly the target he needs to and gets the kill. Stays alive in the process. That healing from Paul coming in handy more than ever now for the Knights. All sustained, all almost filled up. The frontliners looking to do their work, and now it's a 3v5 for SSG to get into this Fire Giant.
Not gonna lie, Go, I think Cubo's season has been relatively quiet. It's probably one of the quietest I've seen all year in his history of play. But right now, he's picking up when he needs to. As we move towards Worlds at the end of the season, this is where you want your jungler to go big. And Space Station do a good job defending so far.
Right now, Vote trying to stay alive, not gonna live through the onslaught. That is Cubo Fred, a double kill coming up for the Monkey, and then Zapman with the cherry on top. An effective deicide there as they wipe out every member of SSG. Unfortunately for them, even with all that sustain, they have to back up here. No Fire Giant for the Knights, but a whole slew of kills.
Yeah, and honestly, credit where it's due to Space Station Gaming and holding off that Fire Giant to create a potential window. The problem is, Gore, the respawn times. Nika, Dardes, Vote all over 30 seconds here. Can Ratha, can Cherio defend the FG? I don't feel too confident in a 5-stack coming down here towards them. There is a lurking in the waters, potentially to come into play, but I don't think we're going to see that here at all. I think Doug was trying to show us those minions on our left-hand side, but I don't think that's going to be enough to bring down that Phoenix.
A whole slew of archers over there to try and take the Phoenix, but a whole team of the Knights to take down the Fire and the Pyromancer. So even if they send some back to defend, they're going to be able to get back in the fight soon enough. SSG find themselves in a rare position to try and start a Primal Fury, although it's just Cherio and Raffer over here. Seems like they're going to go ahead and call that. 5 towers still left to burn for the Knights to go through.
And that was a very interesting play again. It's Knights on the aggressive, and they kind of did that, if you remember, around the goal fury in the first goal fury of the game, where they made a mistake and allowed Cherio to flank on in. That time round was a different story. They forced Space Station to come at them and then separate them with the first Fear No Evil. The fight goes on so long. The second Fear No Evil ends up coming back up and turning around. And now PK are in control of this game. The Primal Fury is just an outbound also when it comes to a secondary Fire Giant. And a lot of global gold available on the map is the key here. 3 tier 2 towers, 2 tier 1 still available. PK can push ahead even further here with gold.
Geez, with already a 3k gold lead in their favor, there's even more on the map for them? I don't know. It seems a little disgusting at that point. If you get it all, you're getting up to almost 12k gold lead, especially if you find some kills in the process. But this has been good from SSG so far. I mean, only 1 tier 1 has been taken just now by the Knights, and they have 2.5 minutes left to work with. Plenty of time to try and find the last few towers, but it doesn't really give them that opportunity we're used to seeing, where maybe you could even siege the base, not even win the game with the Fire Giant buff.
Yeah, both teams really like taking it to each other and trying to defend tier 2 towers with the Fire Giant. But taking into account, the first Fire Giant goes the way of Space Station, and they didn't get a whole lot outside of the left-hand tier 2 at the end. But this split up from PK seems to be paying dividends again. It's the composition of Scaredy and Cubo Fred working together, which honestly, I think Aggro was talking about on the desk. Their synergy in that solo jungle Escrow has come along in spades through the season, and it's causing problems for teams now as they get towards team fighting around each other. Nika and Cubo, Nika doing a good job so far this game in my eyes, just having a hard time really getting to the carries.
That's been difficult, even though he does all that damage, even though he almost soloed Scary D so many times early on in this game. 30 minutes in, he just doesn't seem to be able to reliably get back there, and it's almost exactly how you highlighted it. You came into this game saying, just watch where Cubo puts those Fear No Evils. Yeah, the ganks, he might lock down someone like Dardes or Vote, and that's where the kills are going to be. But when it comes to the late game, he's going to try to isolate Nika, he's going to try to isolate Raffer, just to make it easier to kill Dardes and Vote. And he's done that routinely here in these team fights.
And you can see by the way Space Station have used their relics this game too. You've got a Sun Wukong with beads. You've got Raven with beads. You don't always see those picked up all the time, but against this Fear No Evil, and this is credit to how Cubo's play this match too, by the way, is that As a jungler, as an assassin, you just want blood all the time. You're looking to just find a kill and annihilate someone. But he's holding these Fear No Evils for the right moment to disperse the front line and separate them. And it's giving PK the window. And now with that, with all the towers now falling down the right-hand side, I don't think they're going to look for a Fire Giant here. Sorry, they're not going to look for a Phoenix here, Gore. Mainly because there's only 30 seconds left on this buff. I think we're going to have to wait for the enhanced Fire Giant to spawn now. But it is PK in the lead.
Not only in the lead, but you know, you had highlighted all that gold on the map now in their pockets. If you want to see items and builds getting finished, this would be the time for them to do so. No objectives on the map for SSG to try and sneak away. The safest time in the game to be able to back up, figure out what you want to do. If you're Zap, maybe you go for that purple buff, maybe you don't, depending on what you need. But the wards are probably going to be even more important. You see 3 sentries down there for the Knights. They need the vision game. They already control a lot on the side of the Fire Giant, at least over there in the top right where SSG have their jump.
Really like the Mantle of Discord coming out from Paul here too. Sure, it's more defense and it may reduce a little bit of the amount of power he's going to put out in this engagement. But at this stage of the game, he's looking more for sustain and survivability. And when you look at Spacestation's comp, Raven's trying to dive you, Sun Wukong's trying to dive you. Both melee-focused, orientated gods. So if that Mantle procs, it's going to buy him a second of CC immunity. But more importantly, maybe even a stun to separate him from those frontline tanks and buy himself a chance to get another heal off that revitalizes him. Not only that, extra bit of cooldown reduction. He lost it from losing Mage's Blessing, but gets it back from the Mantle of Discord. Look the item choices from Paul here. Not a lot of people like defense on carries. I can be a proponent of it under the right circumstance. This is one where I think it's the right call.
I mean, we had highlighted it earlier, but keeping this hell alive might just be, you know, priority number 1 for the Knights. The sustain, insane in these fights, but that Fire Giant is respawned. That's going to be the next big point of contention for these teams. Every ult available. So there's not much to highlight as a deficit for SSG, save for all of that gold. But when you look at the builds, I mean, they've been able to do a good job and keep up. Maybe their relics aren't upgraded, but they're right there with the Knights.
Yeah, build option for Daughters, by the way, mid lane. That talisman of energy he's picked up here,
yeah.
I'm interested by that. I like the idea for the mobility and the passive factor, right? Speed up your whole team around you. Makes sense. But he's not really dealing with a lot of magical damage up in his face for the most part, you know? He's too separated from Paul for me for it to really matter. But I don't understand why the mobility factor's there. Get his team in a little bit closer where possible.
Just try to keep him alive as well. Something that's been not necessarily difficult to do. He's only 6-2, but you have to count the fact that he was 6-0 a little bit earlier on. Nika finds himself a tier 2 over here in mid. Being able to clap back a little bit at that lead the Knights have picked up. Still a lot of gold in their favor. So whether or not they can hold on to it now, Neil finds Raffer with a push. Doesn't seem like they're too committed to the fight. Scary D and Neil want to go in, but it's a slow roll for the beginning of this one.
But again, I mean, you saw this at the goal period at the start of this game. This is Spacestation tactically playing the map well with the advantages they find. Nika split pushing mid is forcing people on PK to keep that lane in check, and because of that, it's not allowing PK to get aggressive. Pushing out the lanes a lot of the time just slows down the pace because people worry about overextending, and there's an overextension of mid for a second there. There's a good banish coming through, I would say, from Vogue to potentially set something up there.
Yeah, it feels like everything's about to pop off. A banish, it finally comes through. And then they just back off from the Knights, right? They keep themselves safe, which I will say they're adept at. I like this play. SSG, things have slowly gravitated left as the fight has gone on. A little bit of poke here, a banish there. And finally, it's the Oni Fury. That's the one that's getting impressed on. Knights pick it up at half health. That's where SSG, specifically Cherio, left it. And they're going to be able to secure it before anybody can get in there for Space Station. And now they're going to fall back. This is something that the Knights, as of right now, it feels like they're great at running away from the fight. And if it gets them the objective and gets them out, they're fine.
Yeah, they should, because now they're going to have an Oni minion wave spawning. Fire Giant is up and available. It's an enhanced version. And all PK kind of have to do here, Gore, is survive and wait for these Oni minion waves to push up. Spacestation have got a call to make too now. Where do we go next? Are we going to clear out these Oni minion waves that are coming down the lanes? If we do that, we give them a free Fire Giant. Or do we contest a Fire Giant and then maybe have the Oni waves take a Phoenix? Tough position for Space Station. All the momentum right now is in PK's hands, I would say, because now they can try and force him around. I think Space Station's best call is clear the waves as quick as possible. And you can only see Gore, Vote is doing that. He forwent the first wave of minions and went straight for the Onis and cleared them. so they don't have to worry about left-hand Phoenix.
That's going to keep them safe from going over there. Still have right side and middle to deal with, but they're much closer to the Fire Giant.
Yeah, something wrong.
Also
something wrong on PK, I feel like here.
All of the teammates that decided to move up a little further than everybody. Now he's playing it safe. And I keep expecting a little more damage to come down. Raffer is still floating around his 3-4 HP. I mean, as much as the fighting has been going on, I feel like abilities thrown out, damage has been there. The most you get is that lurking in the waters out of Raffer.
Yeah, I mean, so did Gaia as well at the tail end for Raffer's build here. Very wise dealing with the Kuzumbo. You get pushed Sumo Slammed into a wall, you're going to get free sustain out of it, so why would you not? It will allow you to get away a little bit more and survive a little bit longer. Sure, bit of Divine, a little bit of anti-heal on the side on PK, but in that split engagement, just allowing Raffer to eat some CC and not worry too much about it is important, and just stay topped up. But not only that, Stone of Gaia, the amount of HP 5 or MP 5 regen, just a great item all round for keeping you in the fray longer.
Yeah. Well, half the kills so far that the Knights have picked up are onto that duo lane, so maybe keeping Raffer alive a little bit longer is necessary. He also has the mantle, a lot of defensive items down there to keep him going. And honestly, Hindu, I'm going to tell you, at the rate of this game, I kind of expect his ult to be back by the time they start to clash again. We had highlighted it about 5 minutes ago now that this Fire Giant had respawned. Knights, I mean, even with the lead they still have, almost 10,000 gold, it's not felt confident in their ability to try and close the gap. Now they're looking for a pick on the Cheerio, though, and it's just too difficult to lock anyone down. I mean, even Neil over there was trying to find someone, but SSG are just reading the situation too well.
I really would like to see a monkey toss there, but instead, it's a Kuzumbo toss, and pulled back in is Nika.
And that's going to be a good kill on Anika. Now they're looking to lock down Cheerio. They couldn't find him in right, but they'll find him here in the jungle. A double kill, 9-0-3 right now for Cuvo Fred. Confidence exuding from the jungle, and now they feel ready for a Fire Giant.
Well, I mean, there was a bit of good news for Spacestation fans because their carries were alive, but Dardes' beats just getting used there. Awkward situation now as PK go back to the FG, and look at the zone work from Cuvo and Neil. You will not come down this lane, you will not contest this FG. Vote meanwhile just looking for farm in the jungle where he can. That was a great play from PK. Once again, they're finding the windows, and Kuzumbo, frontline monster that he was, just allowed Cuvo to get another 2 kills in that engagement. PK might win this, Gore.
I mean, it's insane. The way you say it is perfect. No team outside of Ghost has been able to take down Space Station. Now's the time to figure out if you can do it. You've got the Fire Giant. Do you have the backup? That Phoenix falls down. Vote looking to be half HP. Dardes taken off the board. Vote barely staying alive. Fear No Evil dropped in the fountain just for the sake of it. Cuvo gonna help find another kill. 60 seconds for the carries in time out for SSG. It's a 3v5. It's gonna be low. Scary T eliminated. It doesn't matter. The Titans down. The second team to take down Space Station Gaming this phase. It's the Knights.
Man, oh man, what a great play from PK. Honestly, that third game, I was real big believer in Nemesis. Could have been a better pick there for Cuvo Fred. But Cuvo Fred played that Humbat exactly as he was needed to be played. Fear No Evils on point. Patience on the engages. And the Kuzumbo frontline. Neil Mar had a great set again today. I think the pentakill also that Cheerio got was set up by Neil Mar, just to remind you all. So Neil's helping out both teams, but still coming away with the win. PK fans must be ecstatic now because those guys won Worlds last year. They've looked really poor through the consistency of the season, but are getting hot when it matters. And SSG, like you said, take their second loss against a different team so far this year.
Starting to finally take a team that was a world champ and dial them up to world champ status once again. And right at the end of the year, looks good for the Knights. But we'll break this down and talk to the Knights just after this break.